1%, that's a third.
That's a third, man.
Yes. So they
huge
got
amount.
more deposits than they'd had prior to that particular period.
So this means
So
that they were doing more business.
It
or
means
receiving more money.
They were
It
receiving more
means-
money. It came from somewhere.
they had more money to lend if they were lending.
Yeah.
But because, again, of the high default rate, I do not think the lending supposedly went up. Where the lending went up is with people who borrow on these online platforms and who borrow small amounts that don't suffer the charges that are normally attributed to any sort of transaction.
Yeah.
But given the numbers of people who borrow at that level, this money accumulates and it's a colossal sum.
So KCB and PESA noticed a high number of an increase in borrowings.
Yes.
And then the depositors, people who hold accounts with KCB, deposited 31% more.
Yes. The big people who had the money, the companies and what have you. So there was
Alright.
more money to lend.
All right.
Which also
That
means...
could also just look back at when the government announced its measures, which were meant to have cash in people's pockets, reducing the amount of money that then companies were supposed to pay in terms of tax around that period, around March, April, reducing the amount of money that was to go out as outflows. All those things maybe could be an indicator of that.
Very true.
So the organizations, companies that had cash, then were just depositing that money. People who are getting paid were depositing more money into their accounts, or more money was coming into people's accounts from salary, because salary there's the waiver in terms of income tax and payee. Could be all those things.
It's very true.
All those.
I mean, the four top banks that benefit from this were Equity, KCB, Coop Bank, and NCBA. They are the big banks.
Just as they are ranked, the big ones, the big boys.
The big boys, they're the ones who actually benefited from this immensely. But if you'll also realize that the banks that we refer to also have serious online platforms when it comes to... Okay.
True.
Yes.
Okay. Students now threaten to strike over hiked fees. They want money being spent on BBI channeled towards university education. A survey by HELP shows current level of assistance is inadequate. University student leaders yesterday rejected a proposal to increase fees to 48,000 shillings a year and have threatened to call a strike. The student leaders drawn from public universities have called for an enhanced support from the Higher Education Loans Board. This is as emerged that the government would require 10 billion shillings to support all university students if fees is increased as proposed. The HELP Chief Executive Officer, Charles Ringera, said any fees increment would mean an additional allocation per student. To support their education, HELP sends directly to universities half of the 16,000 fees currently paid by students to cater for their tuition. We send 8,000 directly to public universities, and this means that if fees is increased by whatever amount, we shall require financial support to pay half of that fees directly to the universities. He said that with the 48,000 shilling fees increment, HELP would have to send 24,000 directly to the universities to cater for tuition. This will translate to some 10 billion shillings, which we shall require to support the students. So, they say that a student needs 69,000 shillings annually to cater for meals. Accommodation is rated at 14,000, transport at 11,500, clothing at 12,500, and grooming at 11,500. Students' entertainment is estimated to be 12,500 shillings, books and stationery at 10,000, ICT at 10,000, tuition at 16,000, and statutory fees at 31,750. Now, students are saying, you know what? If you're going to increase fees, we're going on strike. We've gone to HELP to ask us as well. And HELP says, truth be told, if you're going to increase the fees, that means more people are going to be coming to us for more money. And we don't have it. So if you're going to increase fees, the government must then give us 10 billion shillings to help us now to be able to loan this to students.
No, we don't have 10 billion.
And we don't have 10 billion.
No, we don't have 10 billion.
So that
Even the referendum is only 2 billion.
So this one is dead in the water.
So
So they'll go on strike.
Yeah, we can take students to school and through university with 2 billion shillings. Ask us how. And if
Okay.
you don't know, get out of that office.
You know,
Who now?
and
HELP
teach you.
or where?
Everybody.
Oh, okay.
there seems to be a thinking here in our treasury about how it is we can jumpstart and infuse some economy mobilization activities in this country. And it seems to be They either increase rates, increase taxes, but essentially, we want to progress economically by taxing our people more.
Of course.
This has never worked anywhere.
It is impossible. This is not a
How are they planning to make this work?
This is not a matter of let's try and see. It is impossible to do so. It's like saying, here's an individual who needs blood in order to survive. So where are you getting the blood from? The same individual. How? You can't do that. And then you want to be able to
We are taxing
pump
you
life.
so that we can provide the services that will make your life easier.
Yes.
Okay.
And,
Now, once we raise the taxes, then we are able to provide those services better. For example, education, for example, healthcare. That's why we are raising the taxes so that the government is able to function and offer you the services. Let's take a break. 13 minutes to 7 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Hii Krisi tukiwapea mtawezana. Star Times brings you the FKF Premier League. Hii ligi ni yetu, tuende nayo. You can also enjoy the Europa League, La Liga and FA Cup. To enjoy, simply get a satellite dish for only 2,699 shillings and aerial decoder for only 1,499 shillings and watch the FKF Premier League live and in HD exclusively on BTV channel 172 and 463. Recharge for 2 months and get upgraded for 2 months or call 0719 077 000.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
It's 11 to 7. So, you were saying something, CT.
What I was trying to say was this. I find it a wee bit puzzling that every time the government comes up with a measure to sort of like encourage the citizens into believing that they have a good handle on what's happening in the country, if you pause, and you don't really need to pause for long, the issue of more taxes will come in one form or the other. There'll be more money the citizens are being expected to pay. Now, this is against a backdrop of two things here. One, most industries have reduced the earnings of their employees. Employees who earn a certain amount of money below a certain amount were exempt from taxes. But that is going to be reintroduced. All the statements that we hear emanating from Treasury, none do I hear of how it is the Treasury expects to expand the activities of the economy, because an expanded economy means there is more money that is circulating. With more money circulating, you can then talk about more money that exists so that it can be taxed. But we have a shrinking economy. Okay? If I'm to go by the information that we've been receiving, this economy shrank by 7.5% in the second 3 months in 2020. 5.7% shrunk. We're shrinking. So if the economy is shrinking, surely is this the time for you to actually just talk about taxing, as opposed to ensuring that you're telling us a narrative of how it is we can increase our economic activities, how industries that are lying fallow can be resurrected, how businesses that are not can be resurrected. This is how you get more money into the economy. I'm putting it really simplistically, I know this, but when there's more money, there is more money to tax. So all this money the government is looking for, they would be able to get, because there will be more. But this one, you're taxing less, which means you'll end up with even less. I find it puzzling. How exactly are they hoping to pull this off?
What options do they have? Anyway, let's discuss that in the next hour, right? What options do they have? What options does the government have? Because the government must continue must continue offering services to the Monanchi, must do things that will help Monanchi to continue thriving. And for all that, it needs money.
It needs money.
Where does the money come from?
Or where does the
Hiya.
money go? And
Yeah.
that's another question that KEMSA is trying to answer now.
Uh-huh.
KEMSA says Kagwe has the last word on the 5.9 billion shillings PPEs. Authority boss insists despite public announcement that kits would be sold at market rate, the minister is yet to commit himself in writing. So it's like he doesn't want to let these go just yet. The 5.9 billion shilling personal protective equipment at the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority, KEMSA, will remain unused until Afia House issues a formal communication on their release. This comes as a company that bagged a multi-million shilling tender to supply the item cited connections in explaining why they did not have a performance bond with the agency even as they transacted in billions of shillings. Acting KEMSA CEO Edward Jagona yesterday told the Senate Committee on Health that the coronavirus protective gears were available for sale, but at the original 9,000 shillings price per unit. A kit contains 95 masks, bodysuits, goggles, waterproof shoe covers, and gloves. Not unless Health CS Mutai Kagwe formalizes his verbal order on them to be sold at prevailing market rates. Last month, Kagwe directed KEMSA to sell the items at the current market price instead of just holding them in bulk at the warehouses. We have not released any item as we are yet to receive written instructions from the CS. Okay, so they're waiting for a letter for this to happen. And until they receive the letter, just keep waiting and looking
Well,
for
it's
PPEs.
formalizing it, and but Senator Ladama mentioned this yesterday, that part of what they did was to intervene in this matter, and all that was being waited for now is a letter. Now, tell me, from the time we started having this discussion of the PPEs being held captive at the KEMSA warehouses, has a month not lapsed?
Oh, more than.
Precisely. Now, it takes that length of time for such a decision to be made, while we know very well what it is that is needed in our hospitals, and we know very well what is happening in our hospitals. We can see it happening, and yet we have PPEs there in the country, and we are still debating about this.
We are waiting for a letter.
Waiting for a letter. Until a letter comes, we can't do anything.
Kagwe said, release those things.
And we said, nope, put it in writing. We are trying to cover our backs.
No, but they are right.
Of course. We want to cover our backs. You
When you
wait
hear-
and see.
when you hear
Somebody
the
releases those
CEO
PPEs and sells them for 4,500
You'll be
shillings.
jailed.
They will come and ask you, where was the order? You say we play back the tape, and you said, but you said CS. They said, where?
You'll be detained for a week as investigations are done.
Exact 7 days for us to so that you will not be present as a flight risk. Bring the letter where it says, and it is signed by you with your seal and stamp. Otherwise, we're not touching this. I don't blame Juguna.
When the suspended CEO says, I was getting calls, this is exactly what he meant. It's actually, it could be true. He was receiving instructions, calls, left, right, and center. We know we need these things.
I
next week.
actually don't even suppose. I believe it is true.
I don't blame Juguna at all. Covering his tracks, covering his back, covering everything head to toe. Cover it, my brother.
You
because
are
you'll be
talking
thrown under the
about
bus.
a multi-billion shilling enterprise. No. Yes,
Wait
he's
for the
he's
letter.
the fall guy, but it can't be him.
It can't be. It can't be. There's absolutely no way you can tell me that you know what the CEO just sat there and
No.
said that it's going to run a criminal enterprise.
Out of the
By
question.
himself,
Pana.
alone.
No.
Pana.
No.
Must have been. When the suspended director of procurement goes to Parliament and says, when I spoke to the CEO and he was telling me he is under so much heat and pressure from Afia House to give these commitment letters, you believe him?
Oh, I believe. I actually believe him. I believe him because
You're just put there and then you're told, you give that guy the letter or you know where you're going.
the thing is, you will be called. There is no evidence unless you recorded the call, and even then, a story can be
Still.
spun around it.
Yep.
All right, it's when it is in writing.
Letter. We make copies and put them everywhere. Give me the letter.
You know this issue of letters. When it comes to the same matters, okay, of procurement within that same Afia house. The thing that seems to be bringing the discussion to an interesting head again is what the AG at that particular time wrote. Not said, wrote. Talk around it in circles. Someone comes back and says, no, this is the letter that I was given.
This is what I know.
Yes, and this is the approval letter that I was given. This is the okay letter I was given
Yep.
from those offices.
Yep.
Finish. All these
Now,
other things.
when that appeared, have you had that discussion? Again, that discussion has died.
It's
It
finished.
dies.
It has died.
Anybody could have said anything in the hallway. Anybody could have said anything at a restaurant over a coffee.
Hmm.
The letter is the one that holds the
Remember,
day. So
the blame was falling squarely on someone. Someone said, and the person said, actually, I followed due process. In this matter, I followed due process. And it went as far as, and remember, the AG's office had said, no, them, they didn't even know about this.
Yep.
And then, lo and behold, what happens? They did know about it. They were informed.
There's a story in Awendo where a 27-year-old man is nursing serious injuries because his hand was chopped off over a debt of 150 shillings. Morris Ouma is said to have sold 700 shillings phone to a man who paid him 550, remained with a balance of 150. He had refused to pay up the balance of 150 despite being asked to do so several times, according to the injured man's wife, Joy Christine. Christine said on November 27th, her husband and the suspect argued at Mariwa Trading Center over the balance before parting ways. After an hour, the suspect came to our home and asked me to call my husband. I thought he wanted to pay the balance. Instead, he pulled out a sharp panga, chopped off my husband's hand just below the elbow.
sorry, the one who chopped the hand is the one who owes money.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Sold you the phone. It was supposed to be 700 shillings. You've paid 550. You owe me 150 balance. We, hiyo pesa yangu bana surudisha. Nitakuletea. Comes home. Ita mzee.
Sheesh.
Things are thick.
Telling you.
It's like that.
You owe me, and then on top of that, you maim me.
It's like that.
It isn't as weird as it sounds. Huh? It isn't as weird as it sounds. It is a practice that
Sounds more morbid than weird.
Yes, but it's a practice many of our people have. We are not good at paying debts. And when someone owes you money, they actually expect you to keep quiet and allow you.
No, respect them.
Yes, pay them. They will pay you.
So
Why
are you making noise?
soko.
Why are
Why?
you making noise?
Yes, I will pay you.
Relax.
Yes, and in fact, I will pay you the course of the year. Now,
Oh,
the
yeah,
following year,
add
the
an
following
S.
year, when you ask, have I refused to pay you?
Did you come and look for me and I didn't find
I
you
didn't
and I
even
ran
receive
away?
the money.
You can't be stopping me in the market, on the roadside. Everywhere.
Embarrassing me in front of
Yeah.
everybody.
Did you call me and I refused to pick your phone?
So someone asks and says, you say you don't have money, but I see you bought this and this and
Kula
this.
nyama.
Yes, so it means,
You're okay.
says, so what has my eating meat got to do with paying you money?
Now, in this case, you become even more antagonistic. You chop somebody's hand.
Okay.
Someone will even tell you, you have money. Why you ask me for this small amount of money and I know you have money?
It's
Yes.
now 7 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Spice FM. Nakuru.
I beg you, if you're on
Traffic.
Mombasa Road and you're headed towards Bellevue, please be very careful because there is some serious, I don't even know what to call it now, ocean, lake, river, right, that one, as is an ocean, just there at Bellevue. So please be extremely careful, and it's clogging up, and so this is affecting traffic right there. If you're headed in that direction, that's what lies ahead. And if you're getting into that, please go very carefully because you don't know how deep it actually is. All right, coming off Thika Road as well, it's a bit slow this morning. Kiambu Road is already jam-packed. That's moving very, very slowly. As you get to the Pangani Tunnel, also that slows down quite some. Getting out though, you can use Forest Road. Although it's moving slowly this morning, still the star of the roads will allow you to get where you're going really quickly. All right, there's been an accident right around the Spring Valley petrol station this morning as it connects then with Westlands and goes out there. So if you're headed in or out, it's affecting traffic as well. Everywhere you look today, things have slowed down considerably because of the rain. It's still drizzling in some parts. Visibility is low. So all around, even before we look at what's jam-packed, please do take it easy. All right? We'll give you more details as we go along. Look at what's going on Jogo Road in a bit. Talk to us if you need to. Spice FMKE on Twitter or text 40127.
This is the Situation Room the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
2.5 minutes after 7 o'clock. Thank you very much for tuning into the Situation Room this morning, wherever you are around the country, Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi, all the way like Tok, or go all the way to Turkana. Any part of the country, we are live on KTN Home for the next 2 hours. We are live on Spice FM, and we are live online on Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. Let's begin the hour with today's proverb from C.T. Muga.
Good men must die, but death cannot kill their names.
Oh,
No, death has already killed them. It's the names that remain. Death cannot kill their names.
good men must die.
Yes, but,
But
death,
death
cannot kill them.
cannot kill their
Yes, I mean, that silence was a dramatic pause.
Oh,
Yes,
okay. Okay.
not a memory lapse, just a dramatic
Just the
pause.
dramatic pause. But it's those ones where you speak like people who want you to jazz your scent. So we went to the
Market.
and then we came back and I was asking him, you need to pay me my... And
My-
he didn't.
Yes, you're having a conversation. Call it public participation. But and so your name is? Mhm. And you come from?
Bas. Now you're
fill in the blanks.
You're being mwalimu now. You're just being... This is you going back to
No,
your
this is my
class.
territory.
This is your territory.
This is my territory.
Completely.
Okay.
Lovely shot though, City.
Thank you
I've got to
very
keep
much,
reminding
Eric.
you every hour.
I really have to commend you. You have good taste.
Very, yeah?
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Much as your taste. So, we have a lot to discuss this hour. And Ndu,
We do. All right. So the whole tax conversation has taken everybody by storm. There seemed to have been some reprieve when it came to the measures that were put in place or the stimulus that was put in place when COVID came around, right? And there was some reduction here and there, a 2%, which CT at some point said, you know what, keep your 2%. But there was a 2% here that was, taken off VAT. There was the 5% so that you got to keep that for some months. There was the, scrapping of the whole 1% tax here and there. But come January, surprise, surprise, all of these things are coming back, whether you like it or not. KRA has been on the spot over and over again that, you know what, you've been down in terms of your collections. You've not been able to reach, what was the astronomical figure we heard the other day, in the trillions, that they've not been able to meet their collections for the last, 6 months, 1 year. It has not happened. And the government is seeing one of the only ways that we're going to be able to remain afloat is if we up our game when it comes to collecting these taxes. It sounds really simple, but that's exactly what it is. The government doesn't collect taxes from its people, doesn't tax its people, doesn't tax businesses, doesn't tax individuals on what they earn, doesn't tax businesses on what they earn and also what they make. Is not going to be able to remain afloat. Even if the government does borrow domestically, even if the government borrows internationally, however that happens, if the government does not tax, it is not going to be able to survive. So the lifeline, or I want to say the blood in this case, is what governments are able to collect from its people to be able to remain afloat. We've heard so many quotes over and over again, give unto Caesar what is due to Caesar, etc., because you have a duty to pay taxes in order for your government to be able to thrive, and then for your government to be able to then give services to you as an individual or a society, as communities. If this doesn't happen, government then is not able. At the same time, however, even with these taxes, the government is supposed to provide a conducive environment within which these businesses, which they're going to come and tax, then have to or should be able to survive. If that doesn't happen, it becomes a little bit difficult to collect these taxes, right? You have some people who are out of work, you have some people whose businesses are tanking. So it will be very difficult for you to collect these taxes from these individuals and businesses who otherwise should be able to provide the same. What we see at the moment is that everything that moves, breathes, takes a step, unfortunately, is taxed. From services that you've already procured, you buy your power, for example, and there's still an added tax on top of that. You put your vehicle on the road, and by virtue of you going from point A to B, the fuel that you put in your car is taxed. You get on certain roads, you're taxed. Because the truth is, even if they're seen as levies, guess what? Those are taxes. However you want to look at them, those are taxes. It's what you're going to pay to the government to be able to use these particular services. Is it too much? Is it? Now, when we're looking at, it's being seen as the way in which a government is going to be able to develop. And I'm saying that that is the wrong way to look at this. Development will not come from what you take from your citizens or their businesses. It'll help you operate, but it will not help you develop. So what it's supposed to do is allow you to maintain a status quo. It is not what is going to take governments from point A to point B. And until and unless governments look away from this tax as the lifeline for them to move on in terms of development, we're going to continue swimming in these tepid waters. There's not going to be anything hot. It's not going to be cold. It's just going to be right there. You'll be able to operate, you'll pay a few fees here and there. But in terms of development, if governments look at taxes to develop, we're going backwards, we're not going forwards. And it's always been that KRA has taken the brunt of this responsibility over and over again. Come on, guys, collect this money, so we can move on from step to step, from point A to point B. If attention continues to be paid on the taxes that a government collects and looking at those taxes as then being responsible for governments to then develop, it is not going to happen. It is actually impossible. You cannot do it. Even if every single citizen in this country is paying a tax on their income, paying a tax on their business, it is not adequate, and it is actually not responsible using that as a way to develop. There have to be other avenues that should be used to get a government to move from point A to point B. And unfortunately, it would seem as if that's where we are right now. We want to develop because we've borrowed to the hilt, but we still want to develop. So where's the attention? Let's tax some more. It can't be, and it won't be. And if that's where the attention is being, unfortunately, I'm saying this morning, then we're in for a huge and scary surprise. It's not going to happen.
So what do you want the government to do?
There have to be, and there are ways, there are other ways. There are examples the world over of what people have been able to do. The borrowing that we are talking about, borrowing for development, should actually go towards borrowing for development. You can't use your taxes to develop your country. You can't tax your people over and over again and say, we're going to use this for development. You should be providing services for your people.
So there's that. There's borrowing for development. But remember, we have already borrowed and we have loans to pay. Mm-hmm. How do you want the government to raise money to pay its debt?
How do I want them to raise money to pay?
How do you expect them to raise money to pay the debt?
If they're not taxing.
If they don't tax.
It's clearly
it's
not
close to a trillion shillings in debt.
It is clear.
That's one. Then there's the issue of the recurrent expenditure, paying salaries and all. I mean, you don't want them to be borrowing, so you can be paying salaries. So there's that also to finance. So how are we going to finance all these things if we do not
already
look at our tax? Already, if we looked at in the last financial year, we had a target of the KRA had a target about 1.6 trillion. They went above 1.4 slightly. If you look at what they expect to raise this year, you definitely expect it to be lower. Okay? And this is because for the first 6 months of the financial year, the government has actually given tax reprieve to the citizens in all those 5% from income tax, the payee, and all those, the reduction in VAT. So already the government has actually foregone some of the tax that it could have collected for 6 months. Mm-hmm. Now, if they don't return that tax and say, all right, so let's return this, and so we are able to raise this money. If they don't do all those things, how are they going to be able to finance the operations of government?
That's what I'm saying. Taxes are for the financing of government operations, not for development of the country. Because what are you looking at? the maximum amount of the budget that you currently have is for running government. The budget that you talk is for running government. It's for running the operations that are already existing. It's not bringing in new operations. It's not talking about new development projects. It's for maintaining what is already there. So even this tax that you're bringing about is to look at the holes that we're talking about now. For example, just give the examples. Education needs some 11 billion. Right? Again, and that's just lower education. We're not even going towards tertiary. Tertiary, this morning, we've read, what have they told us? They need some 10 billion shillings just in order to keep, and this is just the loans board.
It's just help.
This is just help to be able to keep things moving, right? If you want to go to other areas, doctors, they need insurance. They need protective gear. They need their allowances to be paid. Teachers have said come January, if you don't sort them out, they're not going to be able to go back to school because these are things that were promised to them. Across board, these are things that should be running. We're not talking about new projects. These are things that should be running anyway, right? So what I'm saying is that the taxes that you collect are the things that is the money that's supposed to keep these things running. You can't now say that in order for us to develop, let's now bring the tax back. Let's tax some people some more. What was the one we heard about come January 1st? Turnover tax. What was it? The turnover tax of turnover tax of 1%. Looking for money from any which way to be able to develop your country is not the way to go. It's supposed to operationalize things. It's not supposed to bring in new developments. New developments, then, is this money that you should borrow that should actually translate to these development projects. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. You want to borrow some more to be able to fill a deficit. The money that was being borrowed, for example, from the World Bank, just around May before the new budget came, what was it for? It was to fill a budget deficit of the year before. Of the previous fiscal year. We're not even talking about new projects. We're not talking about development. We're not talking about overheads. You want to fill a hole from your last fiscal year. There's a problem here. It can't be.
Indeed, there is a problem. But then the question that comes to my mind is, when we talk, let's talk of a near perfect situation. Taxes are being collected efficiently, effectively, and they're all going in the direction they should go. So what percentage of our budget do they represent at the best of times? 90, 60, 50?
What,
20?
taxes?
Yes, taxes.
Of our budget?
Yes.
Well, if you think about 1.4 and a budget of 2.7, do the math.
It's around 60%. Okay. Now, we have seen in this very country when that tax collection has reached a much higher figure.
Possible.
A much higher figure. So that the deficit that was required was not as we see it now. The deficit was some 10% just to cover it. Now, what are we saying? Are we saying that we have a problem despite the fact that the government has been efficiently and effectively doing due diligence in the collection of its taxes, in the utilization? Remember, these activities that you speak of, even as the government goes about doing what it's supposed to do on a daily basis, these activities are what cumulatively generate the activities from which they tax again. So if you've been taxing, and these activities we speak of have not increased in any sizable, and they've shrunk, COVID notwithstanding, then what it points to is that the monies have not gone where they should have. And if they have, they were not used for what they were intended. Because when these budget reports, when they are read every June, you are told, one of the things that the Treasury, the CS, the Minister for Finance tells you is how they hope to stimulate the economy or economic activity, and they're going to put this money in this area, they're going to put money in this area. That is the language that is used. So
Sounds nice.
Well, it's what it's supposed to do. But COVID notwithstanding, remember, earlier on, I mentioned the 1.4 billion daily that was being banked. You know, when money is banked, it's not a bad thing. But that's not money in circulation, not directly. If I have a business and I'm not expanding it, I'm simply keeping it at the level it's at, and whatever I'm making, I am keeping. Essentially, there is no development, so to speak. The status quo has been maintained. Okay? Now, if the status quo is maintained, the robust economic activity that you're talking about that would bring about what we are anticipating will not happen. It doesn't matter how much we tax. In fact, in my mind, the opposite of what is anticipated is what will happen.
You go backwards. Actually,
Yes.
that's what would happen. You would go backwards.
However, you asked an important question. Does the government have options? Yes, it does. Yes,
What are
it
those
does.
options?
I think we're already pursuing them. The first thing you do is you go to Parliament and tell them to raise our debt ceiling.
That has been done.
That has been done.
We were given, they were given up to 9 trillion shillings.
We are about to
We
get
are
to
about
9
to
trillion.
hit
So
there.
we're about to hit there.
Next,
We can go back to Parliament and ask them to raise it again.
and then we keep borrowing.
My friend, if you look at what the government is already borrowing domestically, my friend, it rivals what we are borrowing externally quite well. So all this money that I was speaking about that comes in, it's mopped up. Don't think it just sits in the banks. It's mopped up.
Yeah. If you look at the balance between how much is borrowed domestically and how much is borrowed internationally, it's matching. It's almost half and half.
Yes, it's almost half and half.
Yeah,
Yes.
for the government. If we look at what the CS Okuri attorney said to have spoken about last week, supporting the budget and preventing the economy from crashing is our main priority. So we borrow to support the budget because revenue is either limited or not there. I'll be dishonest if I say that everything is okay. We are in a state never witnessed before. The drastic reduction in revenue and underperformance of the economy is a concern. So already from the National Treasury, they're looking at the underperformance of the economy. The economy, GDP, has actually hit a 21-year low, according to their forecasts. Okay, they're forecasting that it's going to be 21-year low. Then we are looking at not being able to raise enough revenue from taxes. So that's why they're going to borrow and borrow heavily so you can support the budget.
And it's just supporting the budget.
This
You're
is
not even
just
going
budget-
beyond support.
This is
You're-
budgetary. So this is
Right.
these are the programs that we have earmarked to do in this budget this year, 2.7 trillion shillings. And we are not going to be able to raise 2.7 trillion shillings. We are maybe going to be able to raise 1.3 trillion shillings. So the balance has to come from somewhere. And this is where the somewhere comes in. So borrowing to support the budget. Questions have been asked. Must we have a 2.7 trillion shilling budget? That is one. The other questions that have been asked are, so what is it that we are doing to make sure that we are controlling our expenditure in government? What is it that we are doing to, for example, reduce our recurrent expenditure? The things that we are doing on a daily basis. COVID has helped because COVID has forced the government to cut back on, let's say, travel. So travel allowances, the amount of money that is spent on.
That's what they say they
meetings
have
and
done, Eric,
hotels.
but have they actually done it
You see, they haven't. Who have they paid for? A hotel abroad this year.
locally?
So even locally, how many hotels, how many people have actually been able to go out of their office to a hotel for a meeting this year?
Eric, they do it all the
If you-
time.
If you compare to
To the past.
the past,
Yes, it has reduced.
before COVID. So
It was
COVID has
reduced.
forced a lot of these things to sort of reduce. But is it enough? What else is the National Treasury doing and the government as a whole doing to ensure that you're controlling your costs?
You know, they aren't controlling it enough, in my opinion. All these meetings we have in Naivasha, are you telling me they can't be held in Nairobi? Because all the people going to Naivasha actually come from Nairobi. Unless it's a meeting of governors where people come from all over the place. I'm giving Naivasha as an example. Or Mombasa. What I'm saying is, when you have meetings, there are allowances. The meetings are never announced, so you don't really know how many there are. There are many. This is what I'm trying to say. People may not travel, but there are many. And all these things cost. What I don't doubt is that they are important and these meetings must be held. I'm asking, must they be held in the places they are being held? Because traditionally, that's where we took them and the cost was more. Is there no way of having these meetings in a place that is far more cost effective or in places where the government already owns?
Every time the government attempts such a kind of a move, then the other side, those who benefit from such meetings are the ones that will start complaining, the industry. Hotels will tell you much of their business, much of their conferencing is actually supported by government
Then
and
they,
government
then
agencies.
they ought not to make the noise they make. You see, the issue here is
Because
that
you're supporting, as long as the government is spending money, as long as the government is spending money in, meetings around Machakos, meetings around Naivasha,
Mombasa.
into Mombasa, all these
Eric,
places.
it's the double speak that I'm referring to here. Okay, even when you have a dire situation such as the one that we have, remember the honesty that you spoke of. even in such circumstances, certain things need to get done in a certain way. Okay? And they cost. It's just a reality that the government must come up. But the government gives the impression that they are on this minimalist budget where they do, and I'm saying that's not true. The travels abroad may have reduced, yes. But my friend, we are not in a situation where just traveling abroad is what is required or the cutting of it. We're in a situation where you actually ought to be having conference calls all the time.
Sure. Because you already see that things have gone south. Not going. Things have already gone south.
And they're continuing to go
You're
south.
spending more money than you actually have, to the point that you're actually saying, okay, let's now allow ourselves to borrow almost beyond the ceiling where we've originally given this allowance for. You're borrowing much more than you can actually afford. You have your CS for the Treasury, who is almost in tears telling you, actually, we don't know what else to do but borrow, because if we don't borrow, we're not going to be able to keep afloat. In a situation that is as bad as that, when they talk about, tough circumstances call for tough decisions, you have to cut your cloak according to your cloth. You have to.
Let's speak bluntly here and do. This almost coming to tears when making those statements, crocodile tears don't solve any problems, not in this particular case. These are people who understand finance. We've always had the option of borrowing from these Bretton Woods associations, organizations. We've always had the option, which we chose not to. And the reason is because they bring conditions with them. They look at your circumstances and they tell you, you're going to do this, and you're going to do this, and you're not going to do this. The expensive commercial loans that we borrow, nobody asks you to do anything. We are now not talking, but we're now planning to defer certain payments. And we're talking about huge amounts of money. Okay? Defer, meaning we are going to ask them to give us a break so that we don't pay.
Give us some time.
Now, by the way, and then on top of that, we have a shilling that has been devalued. So that debt is not a constant. It has increased simply because we borrowed in foreign currency. So when the government says, these finance people, everything that I'm saying here as a layman, they understand it better than I do 1,000,000 times.
For sure they do.
And they understand what needed to have been done long before it was done. The tough measures and the belt tightening that you're talking about, it's not being done. They are not doing it.
And so then when things get a little bit thick, this is when that option then of taxing your people comes into play.
That's the easy option.
That's the easy option. And say, okay, well, you know what we can do? We have a fallback plan. And guess what that fallback plan is? Let's tax our people, and then we can be able to figure this out as we go down the road. It's interesting because I know Eric is looking at me and wants to go to a break. But listen to what Winston Churchill said. For a nation to try to tax itself into prosperity is like a man standing in a bucket and trying to lift himself up by the handle.
You ever do mesema?
See, mimi nimesema.
Ni Churchill.
Churchill.
Okay. So Winston Churchill said
for a nation to try to tax itself into prosperity is like a man standing in a bucket and trying to lift itself up by the handle.
All right. So the question we are asking this morning, I would like you to participate in the conversation, is, are we overtaxed as Kenyans? Are we paying too much in tax? So the tax holiday that we've been given by the government because of COVID-19 times, because of what is happening in COVID-19, is coming to an end in about 31 minus 8. Those days.
23.
Those days. It's coming to an end in that time. So is that we're going back into those taxes and then we'll have more taxes? Are we overtaxed as a country? This is what we're asking this morning. 0719-012-600. Time for us to take a break. 25 after 7. We're live on Spice FM KE. On YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We are live on Spice FM, and we are live on KTN Home. We'll be back shortly.
Spice FM.
It's getting hot in here.
Oh, everybody steals. It's better a thief who brings something small back. And I say to myself, there's no better thief. A thief is a thief, period.
All those bribes, how much they're getting per year, how much inconvenience they're causing. As much as you call it a small case, it's worth it to be convicted.
The truth is, we are a tribal nation. Because if we were not tribal, and I want to go back to this, you cannot continue walking around with a mug which is clean outside and it's rotten inside.
We have become a Fuliza country.
We have mortgaged our country because of debt.
You've got one chef working and the assistant chef wakati anatakana koroge unga nini hayuko. Anaenda huko na huko.
This is the Situation Room, the only
The showers
weather
continue to come
with
down in
Spice
Nairobi,
FM.
16 degrees. We'll see highs of 27 today, but it looking like a rainy day throughout the capital. Partly cloudy in Nakuru at 13, highs of 25 today. It's raining in Nyeri at 15, going to highs of 22 and lows of 13. Clear skies in Eldoret at 12, highs of 22. Light rain in Kisumu this morning. It continues, going to highs of 26 and lows of 18. Kakamega is mostly clear at 18. No rain here so far. Looking at a wet afternoon, however, with highs of 27 and lows of 14. It's raining in Mombasa at 25. It'll go to highs of 30. 26 will be the high in Malindi today. Clear conditions at 18 and coming down to lows of 16. It's raining in Kampala at 20. The high will be 25 today and lows of 19. Where in Dar es Salaam it's mostly sunny at 23. It's going to be a warm day going to highs of 32 and then coming back down to lows of 23. Where in Johannesburg it's mostly cloudy at 15. That'll be the low for today, going to highs of 22. It's raining in Lagos at 24, going to highs of 32 today. Mostly cloudy conditions in Kinshasa at 25, going to highs of 31 and lows of 24.
Chilled Spice.
Yikes.
Traffic.
So it seems that Bellevue is not the only place where there is a flood. This morning, we're also looking at Mombasa Road right near Imara Daima. That is also flooded. So as you're approaching, remember the construction taking place and then they dug up quite some places because they were trying to sort that out. So now that has caused the flood. People are moving very slowly in and out. So you also need to be extremely careful as you approach. So let's look at Valley Road, where there's an accident that has happened there, and unfortunately there are some people lying on the road. Emergency services yet to get there, so if you're approaching, please take it easy. So we're looking at Spring Valley also, where there's been an accident as you approach Westlands from the Sarit Centre area. Be very careful. Okay, so we're looking at floods, we're looking at clogged roads, we're looking at heightened traffic everywhere you look today. Jogo Road, however, that's a place where you don't have to have too much problems where you're trying to get into the city. Let's look at what it looks like in about half an hour or so. Remember, please be careful. We've had too many accidents already this morning. Spice FM KE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter or text on 40127.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Conversation continues. Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, www.spicefm.co.ke. Spice FM around the country. Nairobi 94.4, Malindi 97.7, Nyeri 90.9, Eldoret 96.7 or 96.0 in Nakuru, 102.5 in Kisumu, Mombasa 87.9 and 94.4 in Nairobi, and also live on KTN Home until 9 o'clock. The conversation we're having this hour is with regards to taxes and how we're being taxed as a country. Are Kenyans being overtaxed? Are Kenyans overtaxed? Already, that question, Brian Amulioto has posted this on our social media and responses are coming in. What are they saying?
Okay, so Brian Watanga says, well, one thing you need to do, reduce the salaries of MPs, governors. That will be a boost to revenue generation for the nation. We're really looking at the fact that you have a bloated workforce specifically for government, and saying if you can reduce that, then we will have some kind of reprieve. Laban Wangi says, overtaxed and at the same time underserviced. And that's a big deal as well when we look at what's going on in other countries, for example, where they're highly taxed, but the service delivery is world class. So
David says, we aren't cutting the cloth according to our size. And he compares with other countries, like the California state in America, population of 40 million people comparing to population of 48 million people of the entire Republic of Kenya. GDP 343 trillion shillings in California, GDP 9.6 trillion shillings in Kenya. And then if you look at the size of government, How many do they have? They have 58 representatives. We have 349. They have 2 senators. We have 47. They have 1 governor. We have 47. We have plus a president, plus a deputy president, plus all those things. So, and we are going to a BBI conversation, okay, where we're going to look at how we can be more inclusive and add more seats so that more people can participate in peace building, in addition to nation building. So, are we, raising taxes, but it's going like into a big deep hole, where you're raising your taxes, but then where the money is going to finance things that it shouldn't be financing? Should we be looking at other ways of one, raising revenues for the government, and 2, of how then to cut costs and manage our costs so that you can be better and more efficient in service delivery?
The real damage was done not now, not last year, not the year before. The real damage was done a lot earlier. Because the debts we're speaking of, we didn't acquire these debts last year or the year before. These are debts we've been acquiring since 2013. And the debts have just been increasing. And we've been servicing the debts, yes. But all that COVID has done is that it has put us in a position where we have to look at this thing now realistically and ask the questions that we are asking and saying, okay, folks, we are at 7 trillion, going to 8, or are we approaching 9, whatever it is. We are now having to defer 75 billion shillings, which is what we're supposed to be paying. And it means it's still there. And then we have those commercial loans. You know, our debt portfolio is actually very robust. We really owe. Okay? So, and then you're asking yourself, do we have the means to ensure that we can actually service these loans? The government says its thing, says, hey, folks, I think we're at a bit of a standstill here. Some genius comes up and says, why don't we just tax people some more?
It's come up with some ingenious
After all,
ways of taxing.
Yes, the way you
There are
collect
many
money
of them.
Everybody just tax them. Taxes are never an issue if services are provided. They're not an issue because it then explains to you where your money is going. It becomes a subject of debate and a difficult one when there is no commensurate activity that has a positive impact on people's lives. Because if I look around me, there's economic activity taking place. Roads are being built. You have new rail services from Nairobi to JKIA. There's another one going the way to Nanyuki, another one going towards Kisumu. You cannot say that there is no economic activity. But at the same time, you have to ask yourself this very simple question. How are we managing the debts that we've acquired? Forget trying to just pay them off. Is there a way in which we could, because I know there's always the issue, banks are banks, whether they're international banks or whether they're commercial banks locally, they're banks and they think the same way. If you want to restructure your loans, how do you go about it?
Right.
Usually it goes to some very difficult decisions, and it appears that those are the decisions that our government doesn't really want to make at the moment.
But if you don't make those decisions, all you're doing is plunging a already bad situation deeper and deeper into this abyss where it doesn't look like it has a bottom. If you don't make the decision, if you don't say, all right, let's stop, then you just continually make things worse.
Oh, it's infinitely worse.
Yeah, for sure. Many are asking the question, okay, do we absolutely have to borrow? Do you have to borrow where we are right now? Because if you've gotten to the point where the only option is to borrow from, whatever sources that you're looking at them, then folks, whether we want to admit it or not, it's a very, very dangerous place to be in. And then to say, okay, to keep these operational costs running, let's tax our people some more. An even worse place. So if you want to paint the picture for people and say, okay, tax, because that's what we're looking at. Some of the Scandinavian countries, if you want to look at as an example, taxed to almost 50% of their income. But guess what? You have a welfare system that works beautifully until some people would rather even live on welfare than go to work every day. You have a rehabilitative system that is so good that, yes, some people get out of jail, or in some cases, the jails are almost empty and they don't know what to do with them. You have a school system that is so well put together that they're used as a poster child for the rest of the world. And then they have a sovereign providence fund that the people of the country, yes, we know their populations are much smaller, but it's the principle behind all of this. They have a sovereign fund that guarantees every citizen a certain amount of money should things go belly up. but they tax their people within 50%. But you can see that the services actually come out to be something that they can actually count on and depend upon. Meanwhile, they've run everything that has to do with in terms of operations for the government. They've run that through, and that's not a problem. So I do agree that if people can see where this tax that you're taking from them is going, the person who is earning 25,000 shillings, and you take about 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 shillings away from them, if they can see that that is being translated into something that actually works and they understand and they say, okay, yes, I can see where this is going. So that I don't have to spend an extra buck, for example. I don't have to sit in public transport that doesn't work. I don't have to go and queue in hospital and then pay, again, almost half my salary to get treatment for my children. If you can see that this is what it actually translates to, I don't think many people are going to have a problem with it. But we've gotten to the point where even that tax, it doesn't even help you get anywhere. It doesn't. Because you cannot see what it's translating to. But at the end of the day, the government is telling you, even this budget that we are having is really not for you. It's for us to get out of a hole that we've already put ourselves in.
This borrowing isn't really a problem.
The borrowing is not a problem. There's no country on earth that doesn't borrow. Let's just be honest.
Even the debt isn't a problem.
It isn't. But what are you using the money for?
Yes.
That's the issue.
Usually what is considered by people who understand this subject is the ratio of that particular money against your GDP. Mm-hmm. Okay? And they look at it's worked out in terms of percentages. But one of the things that you'll find, a country like Japan, okay? If you look at their borrowing against the GDP, it's not 20% of the GDP. It's 100 and something percent, 121%, I think. But it's not really an issue. The reason why it's not an issue, it doesn't really matter how much money they owe. They have a way of ensuring that that money can be serviced and can be paid. So the borrowing isn't an issue. The amount of money you owe, in and of itself, is really not an issue. Even as we get to what we spend it on, the issue was, do we have an economy that can systematically, continuously, and religiously work and generate
sustain the debt?
Yes, that really is the debate. And the debate, unfortunately, is not very difficult to conclude because it is clearly beginning to show that we don't.
I think it's necessary to then be very honest about what's going on here.
Yes.
Kenya, as it is right now, is not able to sustain the debt that you have. 1 trillion shillings is what is left for you to be able to reach that ceiling of what was provided for last year in Parliament. 1 trillion shillings. And look, we're going to run through that one in no time. In no time, you would have reached that ceiling. In terms of sustainability of the debt that is there currently, it is not happening. And unless tough decisions are made, again, we're going down that rabbit hole and there seems to be no end.
The question is, if you look at what then the government priorities are the government priorities aligned with the reality? We talked about this when the CS for the National Treasury was presenting the budget in Parliament, or even when the budget policy statement was tabled in Parliament in April. And he asked, all right, so the government wants to go ahead with a budget of close to 3 trillion shillings this financial year. And the focus is still looking at the big four. And the big four is health, housing, manufacturing, and what's the other one? Food security.
Food security.
What has been done in the big four in the last 2 years or so of this particular administration? What is it that has happened? Is it the time to focus on that, or is it the time to look at, okay, so how do we carry the country around and through this COVID-19 period? How do we survive this COVID-19 period? That's one of the questions that we keep asking. If you look at how much has been borrowed, so 2013 debt was less than 2 trillion shillings, 1.4 something trillion shillings.
So 1.83 or something.
1.8, right?
Yes.
Trillion. Now we are beyond 7 trillion shillings. Like the argument that you guys have said, that money should have gone, ideally, that money should have gone into projects that then would be able to have spurred the economy in such a way that it has created jobs, created opportunities for people to be able to earn an income and then pay tax. Has that happened? No, it hasn't. Can we look back and ask ourselves, so what went wrong? What is it that has been going wrong over these years? And then find a way of addressing that. Because as we keep talking about this now, we're saying, yes, Ukur Yatani is a man who is sort of under siege at the National Treasury. He has a government to run, he has a government to support, but the political wing of government seems to not be bothered about this. Pesa itapatikana, you don't worry. Let's talk about BBI. Let's have a referendum next year. Let's talk about these other things that we're talking about right now. Let's continue financing these things. And Ukur Yatani is basically juggling. A doctor died yesterday, and this doctor had not been paid a salary for 5 months. How is it possible that somebody who works in government has not received a salary for 5 months? You know, this is those who just fall through the cracks. County governments have not received money for 2.5 months or so. So they are not even being able to finance their operations. So we are at a point where it's clear we should be sitting back and facing our truths and finding and saying, this is where we are, and this is what we can do, and this is what we cannot do. Even if we talk about let's return those taxes that were reduced earlier this year because of COVID-19 times, what is it that the government is going to do to ensure then that it's able to provide the services that it should be providing? When county governments don't have money to run, that means service delivery, zero. When doctors are on strike, that means service delivery, zero. When you don't have money to be able to finance some of these things that you're talking about, yes, it's very lavish and looking very good on paper. We have a universal health coverage that's going to be rolled out, and we went to Mombasa and we agreed with the governors. We are now rolling this out countrywide, but you don't have the money to finance it. Are you being truthful to yourself? We are at a point where the government does not really want to face the truth, or even come out to us and say, folks, this is where we are. Like Kuriatani said, I'd be lying to you. I feel for Kuriatani sometimes. He's a politician, but he's not a politician. No. He's a man who's run for governor, so he's a politician. Now he's in the National Treasury. He's this technocrat who sits there with the others, like the PS in the National Treasury and the other chief economists in the National Treasury. And they're just juggling because the guys in politics don't care. The bosses, the ones who make the decisions, don't seem to be aligned to what is happening. They're completely and totally tone deaf. What do we do?
You know, the analogy that comes to mind, I will not utter because it can be seen as being insulting, but there's an appetite that this particular government seemed to have shown from the time it came into power, and it has been mentioned by many people, an appetite for just borrowing and borrowing and borrowing and borrowing. Well, that particular appetite has caught up with us now, because we are now talking about what technically is referred to as a sovereign default. What this means is that we now want to suspend payments. That's where the 75 billion, the discussion is taking place.
Yep.
And then there's restructuring, which we are going to have to go into anyway. But the problem with these things is when you now deal with IMF, you deal with World Bank, then they're going to have to dictate to you and tell you exactly how you are going to go about these things. It is their money and they're going to dictate. So, if we were to look at the debt that we have right now, unfortunately, it is the worst indictment that this government can have, because essentially it's telling us we have people in power who do not know how to manage their country. You can't borrow that sort of money and not have had a good plan to ensure that that amount of money does something that improves the country tremendously, so that the debt actually becomes minuscule.
Sure.
It's not even an issue of discussion, because the money has gone into the economy in such a way that it is much stronger. There's more activities. There's more money. That, unfortunately, even without COVID, is not the case. We were already having problems before COVID.
And you know what? It pains me to say, and I refuse to believe that the finance experts and the policy makers in this country, especially when it comes to things having to do with fiscal policy and finance and things like this, have not given their word, have not given their direction when it comes to all of this. But it would seem as if that word has been ignored. When things were going south, I refuse to believe that at that point an alarm was not sent out, or they didn't even have a way in which you're supposed to follow when things like this are. Because we know, for example, that the technocrats are the ones who run in terms of operations. But it is clear that he who holds the power of the purse then is the one that makes the decisions. And it would be great if these individuals were listened to, if these caucuses of people who come together with these policies, because there is a policy. There's a policy, a financial policy upon which every government runs. Kenya has one. And it is unfortunate that as we see things now, that policy, which probably is perfect in the way in which it has been written down, that policy has not been followed. Had it been followed, we would not be in the situation in which we are in currently. And I think it also begs across sector for you to say, by the time you're establishing things, you had a plan, which is what we call government policy. You have a plan. Why not stick to the plan? And it is clear that now the things that you plan to put in place, you don't follow them. This is what happens. And unfortunately, you have so many things biting into this. Tomorrow we commemorate the day of anti-corruption and such things. But you have so many things that bite into this, into the legs that doesn't allow this machine or doesn't allow this animal that is government and development to walk. So there's a tick there that continues to suck this blood. And some of the problems that we see, corruption, impunity, lack of implementation, these are the things that we are looking at today. It's not as if there was some plague that came and affected only certain governments in a certain way. It was things that were allowed to come in, and this is what we're dealing with. And unfortunately, bad decisions against the backdrop of a policy that you hoped would stand the test of time, and it has not happened. It hasn't happened.
You know, when you talk about debts, you are talking about external as well as internal, or what you call domestic debts. Huh? Again, let me just read this so that you understand. When you talk about debt to GDP, we haven't reached the scale that countries like the US, China, I think we've surpassed. Because the US, there's 104%, 104.3% of GDP, meaning they borrowed more than their GDP by that percentage. Japan, 237%. Okay. China, 50.6%. Italy, 132.2%. The list goes on.
Yeah.
So it isn't what has been, these trillions we're talking about, they are really not an issue. Not really. The issue is, yes, we owe that trillion. Yes, our economy, unfortunately, isn't robust enough to actually manage that money that we owe. Now, in 7 trillion, by the way, it is, in this country, we're not talking about external debt. It's combined.
It's total.
It's total. It's what we owe. Now, what worries me here is this. We still have very robust, economic, financial system in the country. Our banks are not about to go tumbling down. Our banks are okay. They have the money. However, when you're talking about restructuring and owing, what it means is that the bonds, the tool through which the government borrowed money, will also, much as when it comes due, like these debts come due, the government will not be able to pay. Now, you know what that means? It means that the money that the government has taken domestically will have been sucked in, so it will reduce the actual money that is actually available for even locals to do what they do. So, you want a loan from the bank, you will not be able to get one. You'll be taken around in circles about what they will do. They'll talk about the default rate and what have you, but the money won't be there. You know why? Because it is far more profitable and secure to lend the money to the government. You are told this is what the percentage you'll get, and usually you will get it. It may delay, but you will get it. So that the merry-go-round isn't international. Forget the noise that's being made internationally. Locally, we will begin to feel that impact. And the very things that we're trying to do, we will not be able to do, because these very banks are the institutions that have lent our government the money.
So how do we get out of this rut?
Apart from the government resigning, let me think. Eric, I think you got the answer correct the other day.
Which is?
Just be honest about it. With yourself, be honest with the rest of the country. Because the truth of the matter is this. We seem to be dealing with symptoms rather than the problem.
Sure. But we always use the private sector model and ask ourselves, within private sector, what do we see happens? There's a lot of things that go on where private sector or corporate organizations go into this rut. And what do? You see things like downsizing. You see things like...
and don't they downsize?
Oh, properly. You see things like salary cuts. You see things like, are we going to remove the trimmings and just deal with, the basic meat that we have to? It happens all the time. Why do they do that? So that they can make do with what they have. And then as things get better, they're able to come back. But why do they do that? Because they realize that we cannot continue the way we are. Otherwise, we will go under.
In fact, why don't we give a
live
example,
example
of what happens in the media?
Yeah.
The media doesn't joke with this. Huh? No, they don't. The moment the financial arithmetic isn't making sense, they shed off very quickly.
The trimming shares come out very quickly.
It's very quickly. The hemorrhaging doesn't delay. It takes place and you can see it.
All right, but for government to shed off in terms of staff, that's a big issue.
But this is
Because
an
you're
even
talking-
bigger issue.
You're talking social. I mean, it has a social impact. If the government starts laying off people. This is what we are going to be forced to do by the Bretton Woods institutions. In fact, the conversation is already starting now. Let's look at your parastatals. How many do you have?
Start with the
Who are
counties.
these things that who are you employing? What are they doing? These
And do you
parastatals,
need all these
are they
parastatals?
important? Can you now start
Merging.
looking at how you can rationalize this stuff and the parastatals themselves? We're heading down that route because we avoided that conversation 7 years ago.
We are now going to have it.
When Abdulkadir Mohammed was given a job by the president, can you look at the parastatals? And
He
tell me?
looked.
He looked. He came and said, okay, this is what we can do, sir. Sir looked and said, okay.
Let's talk about it later.
Yeah, just
let me go.
So I looked and asked him, what do you think of the weather?
yeah.
He said, it's sunny today. He said, I also think it's sunny. And,
Let's go for lunch.
and how are you doing? Yes.
How are you today?
That was it.
That was it. That was the end of the conversation. We're having that conversation now. Coming to 2021, we will have issues. Remember, we had a conversation about Zambia the other day, and Zambia is an ongoing conversation when it comes to debt. The finance minister is still not using the name, defaulted. They have, an extended, I don't know what.
It's a default.
Payment.
It's a default.
They have
Just
defaulted
requesting
on
for a
their debt.
little time.
Yes,
to be able
and technically I told it's called a sovereign default. It's a default.
They have defaulted.
Yes.
And the people that they owe money have said, no, we want our money now. We're expecting our money. They have not told them, okay, we can give you a tax holiday. No. Or a repayment holiday. No. They want their money now. Zambia is an example. We are here in a situation where we are at 7 trillion shillings and very many quarters. This is not just us talking. We are just reflecting the conversations that are happening from experts on public finance management to budget experts. Or everybody's just sitting back and saying, look,
What
guys,
on earth is going on here?
guys, let's have this conversation now before we get to that bad point. We don't seem to be wanting to have that conversation now. We seem to just be kicking the can down the road, which you're very good at in this country. This is a can.
It's what we call magic thinking. Huh?
Because it's an uncomfortable conversation to have.
My friend, the situation, forget the
It's
conversation.
even more
It
uncomfortable.
will take us to a place where that conversation will not be
It will not be an option to be had.
and it will not be a comfortable one. In fact, it will even be worse at that point, because you'll not be sitting there saying, "Okay, so guys, so this is where we are." It will be fighting. How did we get here? What did you do? We'll spend so much time
Pointing fingers
pointing
and laying
fingers, laying blame, and saying you ought to get out of this room. You can't have a conversation with you in this room, instead of having that conversation now.
Actually, it's begun, Eric, when you hear of strikes, and along those strikes you hear of deaths, and you hear of salaries not being paid. Don't take that as an isolated event. It is telling you that it has caught up. All this not facing the truth from the very beginning. It has caught up. And remember, these high salaries, allowances, it's not as though people keep them. They spend them.
Yep.
So it's not there. We have a situation right now that is rife for some serious problems.
For sure.
This one, the one we have right now.
And I think it's not about being sensational. We've had a number of people who've talked to us. We have Mr. Bogo who talked to us, ex-Iraqi has talked to us. Kamodo Waiganjo himself who came here and said, one of the problems that we have is that there's a bloated workforce in the government right now. And if we could get away from this high cost of operational spending that we are using right now in terms of government workers and that workforce, if we can sort that out, we would be able to sort out our issues. We would at least be able to have more money flowing and that we can do other things with. It's just like you're saying, reflecting conversations that are being had across board. And everybody's saying there's a problem here, folks. This one we need to fix.
That problem has been there for the longest time.
How do we get the government to see that there's we know there's a problem?
They know
and
there's a problem.
They want you to sit here. They are behaving like they are the only ones who know. And as long as they're telling us other things, we will not find out.
Like we have no idea.
We just tell them, okay, guys, hey, we know there's a problem. Sit here.
Actually,
Mr. President, Mr. Deputy President, sit here.
Actually, that situation has actually arrived, Eric. This one has to hit them in the face for them to see. This is not a talking issue that you talk. See, these words they use on us, they also hear the words that they say.
You would hope.
No, they do. You may not pay attention to it, but even when you talk, you hear yourself. The truth of the matter is they've been believing this nonsense they've been telling us for as long as they have. But the reality is this. You are going to talk to the Bretton Woods institutions. That thing is going to hit you in the face. It's not going to arrive. It has arrived. All this talk of we're thinking, They have been told. Those fellows are fairly clear about this thing. By the way, they've been at this business for the longest time.
You want to talk to us? This is what we want.
This is what we want you to
Yes,
do.
come with this.
Come with this. And they know.
We are willing to talk, and we even know how much we're willing to give you.
And we want to
So
we'll
it's
tell
not-
you how you're going to behave.
Yes,
Let's
it's not
take
that
a break.
yes.
On KTN Home. KTN Home would like to take a break. We are live on Spice FM on KTN Home online. We'll be with KTN until 9 o'clock. Keep it right here, because also in the next hour we talk the doctors, the nurses and clinical officers strike, and the doctors strike threat as well. Good morning.
7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive, and of course Spice FMKE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
The Spice Drive with Monique, the official soundtrack of getting you where you need to be. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice.
Kicking cans down the road and pretending things are all right when you know very well that they are not. And now wanting to have a conversation with the government. So, like CT, you're saying, they are already approaching the Bretton Woods institutions, World Bank and IMF, and they already know what they're going to be told. And it's very clear. By the time you're going there, by the time you're even saying, okay, so can we defer payment of this loan that is due at this point? By the time you're having all these conversations, you already know where you are at. Why not come out to the public and say, this is exactly where we are and this is what we need to do? Before you come and start explaining to us why a doctor that you've hired who's just come out of college is going for 5 months without a salary. A doctor that you've hired who's just out of college is getting admitted to hospital with COVID-19, passes away, and that whole thing that you've been talking about, oh, medical cover, oh, doctors are the ones who are contributing. Nurses are contributing for their own. Clinical officers are also contributing to pay medical bills for their... What is this? Just come out and tell us the truth. My fellow Kenyans, this is what we are facing. And this is what I want you to do. The president wants to take a break, from after Saturday, after he addresses the country. Maybe he should just take that time to come and say, that thing that we wanted him to do in Parliament the other day, in the State of the Nation, just give us that truth on Saturday.
On Saturday.
Come out and say, you know what, Kenyans, this is it.
Niku?
This is it.
Baya.
Nikubaya, tusaidianeni tafadhali. And then go.
I did mention a while back, Eric, that tumelemewa. And I meant it.
Tumelemewa.
The government has needed help for a long time, but they've been behaving as though they don't. Now, our debt to GBT is actually not
Even
that
the other one.
It's not our Kenyans. It's not alarming. No. It's not really alarming compared to others. Sudan is at 176.2%.
Which Sudan? Khartoum.
Eritrea 127.3%. Us we had 65.9. So in terms of that, if you look carefully at what we actually owe, our problem is not what we owe.
It's not the issue.
No.
It is what we've done with that money. And
Yes.
our capacity to
Yes, our management of these resources, that is the issue. And I'm saying that if we were to look at the jam that we now currently find ourselves in, if there was an indicator that this government don't seem to have a very good handle on what they're doing, it's this. Because with that amount of money that we've bought, believe me, we should be somewhere else.
Properly.
Oh, yes. Even this COVID would have been talking about it. But talking
Would
about
have been
it
the model country.
Yes, we are.
Coming to the top of the hour, thank you very much for tuning in. Stay right here. In the next hour, we speak to two doctors on the plight of healthcare workers in the country. We still have to have that conversation. Good morning. It's now 8 o'clock.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. traffic.
Okay, please, guys, drive slowly this morning. The roads are flooded. It continues to rain, and this is added to the morning traffic, which is normally there. So if you can drive carefully, that would be great. It would also be nice if you can, take care of the people who have to walk, unfortunately, because a lot of people are being splashed this morning and they're not happy. Okay, so there's traffic on Mombasa Road, and we have some flooding around the Imara Daima and also Bellevue. So as you approach those, you need to be very careful because we don't know how deep that is. All right, we're seeing some traffic. Been at the same place for 40 minutes on Thika Road. Yes, we know. I'm sorry, but as you approach the Pangani underpass, it's going to take some time. The service lanes, however, this morning are working just fine. Don't have any problem with that. They're moving very slowly, but they're moving, which is a good thing, as opposed to Kiambu Road, which is an absolute standstill, and we're already at 4 lanes and counting this morning, guys. So looking at Gong Road, that's all right. Getting to the city's mortuary roundabout, then out towards Valley Road. You get to Valley Road, however, and you're going to be stuck a little bit. Okay, so everywhere you go, you need to be a little bit careful so we don't get stuck. Is it possible to be too stuck? Okay. Spice FMKE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's 2.5 minutes after 8 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Before we look at today's proverb, there's a comment that's coming from Senator Sylvia Kasanga. What's the role of the National Assembly as well, And we have talked about this like forever. Eh? The National Assembly has been given serious powers when it comes to budget making, and oversight. National Assembly raised the debt ceiling. National Assembly approves budgets every year. Budget policy statement is taken to Parliament. The various committees led by the Committee on Budget and Appropriation sits and looks. And then here we are, we're having all this conversation. The budget committee will sit back and tell us, it was the very previous chairman or the current chairman. Jokes. Anyway, we'll continue with this. Let's hear today's proverb, CT.
Good men must die, but death cannot kill their names.
Good men must die.
Yes.
But death
cannot
kill their names.
No.
This is a very, 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 very apt proverb for today. A good man died yesterday. His name was Dr. Stephen Mugusu, 28 years old, succumbed to COVID-19 complications. And according to the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union, at the time of his death, he had not received his salary for 5 months, had no insurance, and his young family has been left with no compensation. It's too steep a price for patriotism. Dr. Stephen Mugusu is the man that the Secretary General of KMPD was talking to us about yesterday when he had a conversation with him on this show. And he told us, as we speak, as we're talking about the plight of healthcare workers, there's one of us who's in hospital. He's in ICU. He's fighting for his life. He has COVID-19. Dr. Mugusu had actually posted a message in a group of doctors, and this is what he had said. My dear colleagues, let me take this opportunity to admonish you today to get your pay or get out while you can with your health or life intact. I've had the COVID-19 for 5 days tonight, and I'll say not even a full pocket can replenish what has been lost on high oxygen flows, all manner of masks, and begging for one more gasp of fresh air. Usually I'd write and write, but today I just want to say, save your miserable selves from those institutions you live to earn again. I am not in any way inviting arguments or response to my post. I'm too weak to type anymore. Save yourselves. Dr. Mugusu passed away yesterday at the age of 28. in ICU. And you can imagine the kind of outcry because KMPDU circulated this information, announced this to the public and said, this doctor has died. And KMPDU said at the time of his death, he had not received a salary for five months. Doctors have been pushing to go on strike. They suspended their strike because they want to have this conversation. They've been invited by the health committees of the National Assembly and the Senate to have a conversation around this, around the issues that they've raised. Clinical officers and nurses went on strike yesterday. People who went to seek healthcare services in many public hospitals across the country yesterday were told, just rudi tu nyumbani. Clinical officer is the one in charge here, nurse, the one who runs this facility, not available. Go back home. So people who are seeking health services today and yesterday are not getting those services. Doctors who were threatening to go on strike, they postponed their strike and said, let's just hear from these members of parliament and the Senate and hear what they have to tell us. But the issues that we are raising are the same issues. These are conversations that we've had many times. What would it take even for a government to see a statement like this from the Doctors Union and see, okay, let's not wait for Thursday to have that meeting. Let's meet tomorrow. What is it that is needed to happen for a government to even respond to something like this and say, it's okay, we have made a mistake, this should not have happened. Maybe Dr. Mugusu was not on the list that was supposed to have been on that particular list. This is where the mistake happened, and this is how come he was not. What would it take to get a response on this kind of thing?
Well, it seems that death doesn't matter. It would seem that something as morbid as death is not enough to say that let's do something about this. It would appear that even if people continue to die, if those who are on the front line, then who are charged with the responsibility of then providing healthcare to Kenya's people, are dying for lack of proper care, and even that have lived in a situation that would be akin to squalor for the last 5 months, nothing has been done about that. It seems that even that is not enough to elicit any kind of reaction. And I think if you get to that point, it's a terrible, terrible place to be in. And if you want to gauge the country by the way it treats its least vulnerable. Its most vulnerable, rather. Gauge the country that way. Gauge your leadership that way. Gauge the government that way. Because in this case, whether it is somebody with a degree in medicine, in that place, most vulnerable, sick, having not been paid for 5 months, and is still charged with the responsibility of providing healthcare. If you want to gauge and say, what is it going to take to elicit a response, that's how you gauge. Even death is not enough to elicit any kind of response. It doesn't matter. And I keep saying, the way your leadership tells you how they think about you is the way in which they react. Believe them. Believe them. They're not telling you anything apart from the truth. Believe it. They are. This is it.
Let's have a conversation with two doctors this morning again. There's one doctor called Dr. Rain Mwendwa. Dr. Mwendwa is very, very active on social media. And a couple of days ago, when a number of doctors passed away, he recorded a video and shared it on his social media platforms. And he was talking about, this is it. I mean, we talk as if, it sounds as if we are just being selfish when we're talking about the plight of doctors. But this is what it means when you have one doctor not attending hospital, when you have 2 doctors who are hospitalized, when you have 3 doctors in ICU. This is the impact that it has, not just on the doctors who are in ICU, but in the entire population, in the people who need healthcare services. He's on the line. Also on the line is Dr. Elizabeth Gitau. She is the Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Medical Association. Good morning, Dr. Aris.
Good morning.
It's good to have you on the show this morning, and I'm going to start with you, Dr. Gitau. The Kenya Medical Association, we have talked to the president, we have talked to other leadership of KMA and other doctors as well. Let's just first of all get a reaction from you. Dr. Mugusu, he passed away yesterday, and we know now from KMPDU and what KMPDU is saying, this is what he was going through all this time. What do you say to that?
It is very unfortunate that what have happened to Dr. Mugusu and his family. In fact, yesterday, at the time of his passing, I had just gone to donate convalescent plasma as a COVID survivor to him so that he can get help. It was devastating to get there and find the widow and being told that it's a little bit too late. What we have done to Dr. Mugusu and all the other young doctors who were either not employed or for those who were employed under the UHC program, and for 5 months on end, did not receive any pay. Dr. Mugusu, when he got sick, at that point in time, he sought help at the nearest facility where possibly he could afford. He did not have a medical cover. He did not have any direction from either the county or his employer, who is the Ministry of Health, as to where to seek help. By the time the situation was getting out of control and he was very sick in HDU, having accumulated a very big bill, that is the time people are scattering all over because the union and the associations are asking what's happening to this doctor. That is the time now you see now the county is coming in to ask for a bed at KU. At the time we got to KU, Daktari was very sick. It is such an emotive issue. I met the young doctors who are his colleagues there. And these young doctors are disenfranchised. We have mistreated them as a country. We have not allowed them to offer their skills. We have employed them under the most inhumane conditions that you can employ anybody. Can you imagine going for 5 months without any pay? And even the spouse, again, was one of the doctors who, again, did not get employed straight from internship, volunteered their services at Laikipia, and they were told volunteer so that you get a contract. After that, you get a contract which is, honestly, 3-month contract for a doctor, no medical cover, no compensation. We keep talking. I think from the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, KMA has met the government, KMA has met Senate, KMA has met National Assembly. We've even met CECs from the various counties, talking about these issues, talking about compensation packages, talking about medical cover. And all these things, they'll be written from the office of the president on paper. But when it comes to the action, it doesn't happen. So I think from an association, I think we need to stop talking and make these things happen. I think at the bare minimum, what the association is calling for is that we must pay Dr. Mugusu's bill. Number 2, we must ensure that this does not happen to any other doctor. Number 3, his family must be compensated. Those are the bare minimums that we're talking about. And for the doctors who are unemployed, should be employed by the counties, and those who are employed under inhumane conditions, they must be placed under the correct contracts that are humane. Otherwise, I think we have lost it.
You know, Dr. Gitao, even as you say some of these things, yesterday we spoke with the CSC for CEC Health in Makwene County. And one of the things he told us that he said he's hard-pressed to find that these are the conditions under which doctors are actually, or health workers are actually operating. So, I mean, let's leave the part of, not being paid for 5 months, as difficult as that would be. Let's leave that aside. What are some of these conditions that we're actually seeing? What is the true situation of the ground? Because again, we'd be asked to prove and say, look, is it true that doctors and health workers are going and there's no provision of equipment, for example? There is no health insurance, even after top executives said, let's make sure that these provisions are made, that there are no allowances, there's no insurance. Is this truly how it is on ground? Doctors don't have access to this?
When this package, especially for NHIF, was brought, if you notice the small print, it said civil servants and for people under contract over 1 year. So what happened to Dr. Mugusu and his colleagues who are employed for 6-month contract? What happens to them? So for sure, some of the things that are declared, they're declared maybe so that you can say you're doing something. And even when it comes to PPEs, I think the biggest challenge has always been maybe the isolation facilities would have PPEs, and it's because they're getting support both from the county and from the Kenya COVID-19 fund. But there are those areas which are not isolation facilities, which do not get PPEs all the time. And maybe the challenge has always been when somebody comes and talks about where is the evidence, who are these doctors who don't have PPEs. I think unless you go to the ground and the day you find that doctors do not have these PPEs, or the PPE is provided, you're given a mask on Monday, then Tuesday, Wednesday you're not given, then you're given on Thursday. Does it mean you have adequate PPE? The county will say, I have given PPE, but for Tuesday and Wednesday you didn't have PPE. That does not count as having access to PPE.
Sure.
Explain to us, Dr. Ketao, because you're saying that this young doctor, Dr. Mugusu, was employed under UHC and he was on contract. What's that and what's that all about?
So when the COVID-19 pandemic started, there was a call for increased human resource for health. And at that point in time, I think government at some point started said, okay, let's employ, I think, 2,000 healthcare workers. At the end of it, it ended up being about 200 doctors across the country, and these doctors were employed under the Ministry of Health, but sent to various counties.
Okay.
So each county was to get about 3 or 4 doctors. So this is an employee who's under the Ministry of Health, under a 6-month contract, but is working at a county facility.
Okay.
The same case as Dr. Mugusu. It's been 5 months down the line since they were employed, but these doctors have never been paid.
So the money that was set aside by the government, and this was coming from the UHC fund, 1 billion shillings, that's what the president announced, 1 billion shillings will be taken from the UHC budget to recruit healthcare workers to support in the fight against COVID-19. This falls in that category.
Yes, it does.
And you're saying that they have not been paid a single cent since they got employed?
Yes, they have not been paid. At least for Dr. Mugusu, we can confirm that Dr. Mugusu was never paid for 5 months. If government wants to pay right now, I'm sure they will go ahead and do a payment right now so that they can say they paid. But for 5 months, by the time Dr. Mugusu was dying, he had not received his pay for 5 months. And I think at this point in time, maybe is the point, I think we've become a very dishonest country. We make declarations, we've become dishonest, and also nobody takes responsibility. At this point in time, you'll see a lot of blame game. People, the government will say, look here, we've already paid. Or the county will say, this was not my worker, this was a worker belonging to the national government.
Yep.
Everybody will blame the other, and nobody takes responsibility. So I think until the day somebody takes responsibility and says, I am sorry, this was something wrong that happened to Dr. Mugusu, and it should not happen to any other health worker. That is the time maybe as a country we shall move forward and we shall believe that the government is actually taking responsibility.
If health workers who work in health facilities end up like the late Dr. Mugusu, then the picture you're painting, Dr. is an extremely dire and an extremely bleak one. What then is the hope for an ordinary Kenyan who doesn't have a medical training, doesn't have the ability to access medical care as easily as a doctor might? Are we saying, therefore, that the ordinary Kenyan should simply focus on having faith in staying alive, because there is no chance in hell that they will be taken care of should they unfortunately fall ill?
For sure, this is a situation. If you cannot take care of the healer, so what happens? What happens to the patient? If the doctor on the front line is unable to access the best level of care that they should be able to access, what happens to the ordinary Kenyan? I think it's a very sad situation. Maybe these stories are not told every day, but it is their situation that in this country, it is either illegal to be poor or it is illegal to depend on your government, such that you either have to be rich or be a politician for you to get help in this country.
Dr. Mwendwa, even as we have these conversations and we're talking about what has happened yesterday, it could be that everybody is very emotional about this unfortunate case that happened with Dr. Mugusu yesterday. But it just a brushstroke of the bigger picture of what is really, really going on. Is paying insurance, is paying allowances, is paying salaries enough to get this whole mess worked out? Is that the antidote to all of this?
First of all, thank you for having me this morning. I think I'll answer that with a question: is what is your life worth? You know, that's the best way I can answer that question, because there isn't any amount of money that can ever compensate for your life, no matter what. So I don't think the solution is just better pay, better insurance or health cover, but it will help. That will go a long way. But the solution of the problem at the end of the day is restructuring the entire system. and not having content or adequate leadership in place, because we can keep blaming this person and that person, national, county. We need to understand that this system is not working, even when it was just national. And this is so sad, because I went through the same thing. When you start your internship and you're a national, you're literally told that you will not receive a salary for at least 3 months. Like, how is that normal?
Can I stop you there? Can I stop you there before you go on? I want to understand this conversation that takes place when you're told, first of all, as you start off as an intern, you are under the understanding that you will be earning something on a monthly basis, right? It's an agreement.
Yes.
Okay.
Because
so how does this conversation evolve to understand that you will not earn anything for 3 months? How does that happen?
So that happens at the Ministry of Health offices. When you go there, you are posted to a particular area to go and do your internship in a referral and training hospital. And basically in the office, you'll be told, like, okay, you have been posted, let's say, for example, Garissa, or, for example, Lamu, where I was working. And here you are, you're living in Nairobi, and you're told, go. There will be some delays in salaries. Usually, they don't tell you how long, but you get this from the doctor who is now finished internship tells you, boss, forget it. 3 months, you're not getting paid. I waited 3 months borrowing money. It took 5 months to get to get paid. When in my first month of internship, my mother died. Now, you can imagine, I have the title doctor, funeral arrangements, expenses, hospital bills, and here is the doctor, fresh into internship, and I have nothing to show for it. I have no salary to go and start looking or chipping in to prepare for my mother's funeral. So this is a reality, people. Like, it's something that we don't speak about as doctors, because, you know, as a doctor, you're seen as this prestigious person. And I've been listening in and you know, having this conversation that even if a doctor, a person like a doctor, so you need to understand that doctors are very much Kenyans. We're not balling out of control. Our bank accounts are not that good, especially the young doctor.
But Doctor, I have to ask this. Going back, because like I said, even when we heard this answer from Dr. Gitao, we're very emotional about this. Everybody, you know, on this side is very emotional about all of this that's going on. But going to the nitty-gritty is probably the way to solve to look at how this problem can be solved. When you're told that you're not going to receive your salary for 3 months, and the person who was there preceding you also went through that same, what is the reason why? Is there a delay from money coming from? What is the reason why you're given?
This is a deliberate thing from the state. This is a deliberate thing from the state. And I'll give you an example. Right now we have 2,000 unemployed doctors. 2,000 doctors who have qualified, but they have no salary. So what you do is you create unemployment, put people in the most desperate situation. The doctor knows his worth. There was a CBA that was signed in 2017 that structures the salary of a doctor. But they will not give you that salary because you have been sitting at home for 2 years. 2 years. I didn't get paid for 5 months. These are people who are sitting at home for 2 years. If you offer this person even 30,000,
they'll take it.
Are they not going to take it?
They'll take it.
Exactly. So this is the situation. When you create a situation where people are desperate, people will go for crumbs. They will not wait for the whole cake. They will literally eat the crumbs. And this is a deliberate situation that they've created. Because once that CBA was signed and sealed, that is still not delivered to date, they understand. There's this thing of, you know, the doctor always having, and I saw Alfred Mutua saying we are very entitled, or we think ABC. We know our rights and we know what we're doing there. We're in the middle of a war. We're on the front line. Yesterday, a 28-year-old man died. Our whole father died yesterday. And you went there knowingly, you know, and he hasn't received any pay. And he says that in his message, even if I was paid $1 million, what will that $1 million do to help the oxygen enter my lungs?
Yeah.
And it's not going in.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's a sad situation. Let's take a break at this point. We're speaking with two doctors. Dr. Rain Mwenda is a pediatrician, and Dr. Elizabeth Getao is the CEO of the Kenya Medical Association. A doctor died yesterday, and nurses and clinicians are on strike. The issue of doctors being the frontline workers, the healthcare workers being the frontline workers in the fight against COVID-19, and how then they are being treated by the government is a conversation we had yesterday, is a conversation we're having today, and this morning we want to seek answers. What will it take for the government to act? We'll be back shortly.
Spice FM.
Hey, it's getting hot in here. The media has greatly contributed to the moral rot that we experience in this country.
I remember a senior politician telling me, point blank, nobody steals in the field, it's stolen in the granary. So my friend, if you're going to win an election, jipange kwa granary.
I think we are suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. Our violator and abuser is also our redeemer in our mind.
The whole political class, the whole political institution is rotten. It is based on ideals that cannot progress our country forward.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. "24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Hii krisi tukiwapea mtawezana. Star Times brings you the FKF Premier League. Hii ligi ni yetu, twende nayo. You can also enjoy the Europa League, La Liga and FA Cup. To enjoy, simply get a satellite dish for only 2,699 shillings and aerial decoder for only 1,499 shillings and watch the FKF Premier League live and in HD exclusively on BTV channel 172 and 463. Recharge for 2 months and get upgraded for 2 months or call 0719 077 000.
All right, the sun is
The
speaking
weather
through those
with
clouds.
Spice FM.
Some rain still in some parts of Nairobi. 16. We're looking at highs of 27 today. Partly sunny conditions in Nakuru. Highs of 25 and lows of 14. Light rain continues in Nyeri at 16. We're going to highs of 22 and lows of 13 today. It's going to get a little chilly there as well. It's a bit chilly in Eldoret this morning. It's sunny, however, going to highs of 22. Light rain in Kisumu at 21. Going to highs of 26 and down to lows of 19. It's sunny in Kakamega this morning at 20, highs of 27 and lows of 14. Light rain in Mombasa at 26, highs of 30 and lows of 25. We're looking at sunny conditions in Malindi at 21. We'll go to highs of 26 today and lows of 16. Rain showers in Kampala, 20 degrees, highs of 25 and lows of 19. And Dar es Salaam is sunny this morning at 25. We'll go to highs of 32 and lows of 25. It's mostly cloudy in Johannesburg with a spot of rain here and there. Highs of 22 and lows of 15. It's raining in Lagos at 24. It'll be a warm high of 32, coming back down to lows of 24. And for now, in Kinshasa, it's mostly cloudy and a chance of rain this morning. Highs of 31 and lows of 24.
Spice up your life.
Woo!
Traffic.
So today's that day. The situation on Mombasa Road, right around Gateway Mall and then to Kappa, it is bumper to bumper. Nothing is moving. Folks have been there for the last 45 minutes and it's not letting up. At least not now. Guys, people are saying you'd rather even spend 500 shillings on the commuter train from the town to the airport because this one will move a lot faster. So it's bumper to bumper situation on Mombasa Road. Also, as you get down further, remember there's some flooding we've seen around in Maradaima and it's called what? Bellevue. Yeah, that's where we see a problem. Also, Thika Road, Kiambu Road is a mess. It's very, very slow this morning, guys. So everywhere you look, there's traffic everywhere you go, just like the rain. Okay, so please be careful. If you see a reprieve somewhere, let us know. The service lanes on Thika Road, however, are looking pretty good. Use those if you must. Okay, Spice FMKE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter. Tell us what it is that you see in any way we can see we can help. Okay, or text on 40127.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
And we're back, 8:30. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Yesterday, the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union, KMPDU, announced to the public that Dr. Stephen Mugusu, a 28-year-old doctor, married, has a family, passed away in the ICU of a hospital in the country where he succumbed to complications from COVID-19. The KMPDU went ahead also to announce that this doctor has been working for the people of Kenya, and he has not received a single shilling in payment for 5 months. This is where now the rubber meets the road. So, Dr. Mugusu was employed by the government, by the health ministry, after that announcement that was made by the president that, you know what, to fight COVID-19, this is what we are doing. We are reorganizing our budgets. So we've gone to Parliament and we've asked them, because you had approved X amount of shillings as budget for universal health coverage for this financial year, let's reorganize that, take a bit of that money and hire healthcare workers across the country to support those that are already employed in the fight against COVID-19. Dr. Mugusu is one of the about 200 doctors who are employed, deployed to a county, supposed to be paid by the Ministry of Health. Until his death yesterday, he had not received a single shilling in payment from the government. This is the government that has told us how it has spent so much money in the fight against COVID-19. That is one issue. Let's put it on ice for a bit, okay? Second issue, this is a doctor who, when he started feeling ill, he had to look for the nearest and cheapest health facility to go to. And until the issue then reached the other doctors and union officials and it became a big issue, that's when now he was being transferred, he was being taken to other hospitals, and he passed away in an ICU facility. He has left a bill that doctors are asking us to help contribute so that we can remove the body of Dr. Mugusu from mortuary. There's a bill. This is a doctor who does not have medical cover, employed to fight COVID-19 this time. Issue number 2, ICE. Move it on the side. Dr. Mugusu had actually written to a group of doctors about a couple of days before he passed away. And he told them, you know what, guys, what I have gone through, if you are here working and facing the same kind of plight that I'm facing, please just get out of this. Stop working for government. It's not worth your life. It's not worth whatever I have gone through. This is a doctor who's feeling there's no point in serving if this is what it takes. This is where we are as a country. These are the conversations that this one doctor has brought to the fore for us to face as a country. What will it take for those in leadership, for those in the Ministry of Health, for those in State House, for those in Upper Hill, the office in Upper Hill belonging to the opposition leader who has a big say in how the government is running? What will it take for anybody in positions of authority to realize that when doctors issued a 21-day strike notice, they were not Sumbua? When nurses issued a 14-day strike notice and they went on strike yesterday, it was not for Sumbua reasons. When clinical officers issued a 14-day strike notice and they went on strike, it was not for Sumbua reasons. That when you and I today fall sick and we are seeking healthcare in any facility, public facility across the country, and we don't get a doctor, we don't get a clinical officer because they're on strike, it is not for Sumbua. It is about life and death. When will it hit them? We are speaking this morning with Dr. Rain Mwendwa. He is a pediatrician. He is one of the doctors who's been very vocal about this issue. We are also speaking with Dr. Elizabeth Gitau. She is the CEO of the Kenya Medical Association.
I guess a question for both of you now, or just as we continue with these, as we've been looking at what exactly is going on here. And so there's a strike. And one thing that we spoke about this strike yesterday, and it's a direct question, because I don't see the strike now as turning up their noses to the situation. I see it as almost a willing of the government to do something. We don't want to go on strike, but here we are being forced to strike, begging you to do something about this situation. Is then this strike warranted by the clinical officers, by the nurses, by the doctors who are now in conversation with government, as it were? Is it absolutely necessary to have this now turn of action taken?
Start with you, Dr. Rain.
Okay, thank you for the question. I would say it is more than warranted because, unfortunately, we as a Kenyan people only respond when we are threatened. We don't respond when we're asked nicely. When you're told pay your taxes by this month, please kindly, you don't. But when you're told if you don't pay tax by this time, you'll be fined X amount, then you take it seriously. So, and what this, by the time you go on strike, let's get this straight. We don't like going on strike. When you say that there's no nurse, there's no clinical officer right now in any public facility, that means my family members cannot get attended to. That means my own family can lack healthcare services. But that is something that, my family is well aware of. They understand the situation. They know the plight of the healthcare worker. They understand that this is a life and death situation. Before COVID, we were not having this strike situation or this very tense situation because that time it was still the back and forth in the offices, go to the national government, go to the county, the usual ping pong that, when you try to address issues. But when it gets to a point where your back is up against the wall, you are literally in a life and death situation. And I literally told doctors, it gets to a point where you just have to kubali, because that is how defeated we feel as healthcare workers, that we literally now have to just, it's a personal choice. I can go to work and get a salary, but at the same time, I can go there not fully protected and I can die. You have to come into terms with that. So this strike is warranted. I really hope that this time we don't get to the point where we actually have to go on strike. I really hope that this means that whatever the media has been talking about, whatever the situation that we have been very vocal about, is actually making these people think whether they want to actually sit down and meet, I don't like to call them demands, but to meet the rights we are asking for as healthcare workers, and as doctors. So definitely warranted. I mean, if Stephen's story is not a clear example, if Professor Were's death is not a clear example, if the clinical officers, the 9 clinical officers who have died is not a clear example, we're talking life, then I don't know what else will warrant a strike like this. That's the reason.
There's something that has been doing the rounds in my mind. There's this call that the doctors have had for the longest time. It's a question for both you and Dr. Gitao regarding a commission. In the circumstances that we now find ourselves in, how would a commission have been useful?
Maybe I can answer that regarding the Health Service Commission.
Yes.
The reason the doctors call for a Health Service Commission is because with the Health Service Commission, you will set up a mechanism which allows for equal employment for healthcare workers across the country, will allow for rationalization of the provision of services across the country. Meaning, like, if one county has 20 OBGYN and another one has 1, you share them based on the needs of the Kenyans, not based on who trained that OBGYN or who had that doctor at that point or who hired. So the services will not be dependent on how much the county can pay, but will be dependent on rationalization of services across the country. In terms of payment, again, of these healthcare workers, in terms of the opportunities and the compensation for their services would be the same. Because clearly, right now, doctors are on different schemes of service. We have doctors who are employed previously, they're on permanent and pensionable, they have a scheme, they have an insurance scheme. Counties decide which medical scheme they will pay or will not pay. Some counties will pay comprehensive NHIF, some counties will not pay. So that unequal treatment of healthcare workers makes service provision across the country not to be standardized. Were we to treat our healthcare workers in a standard way in terms of training opportunities, in terms of compensation, and in terms of ensuring that they are there to the procedures and protocols, I think we would actually have better quality of care across the country and a better satisfied healthcare worker.
But how would this work if you had a commission? I mean, we have a ministry, but health is a devolved function. So are you saying that Is it something that you'll automatically belong to, or is it something that you must join like a union?
So ideally, it is a government function. So the same way you'd have a teacher service commission, which is the employer of teachers. And I think it is possible, and I think the ministry has shown us it is possible that you can actually hire a doctor on the UHC program and send them to a county. So this is not something that is not doable. It is something that you can second employees to other counties, and you can always find financial ways within the two levels of government to ensure this person is actually paid, so that we can standardize. We live in one country, so it is honestly not fair to have patients who are treated in different ways across the country, depending on what these counties are either able to afford or what they care to afford.
In your opinion, what would require doing for this to be effective? Because you've talked the management of the union that the doctors belong to has been at this for quite some time. And are you making any progress? Is there light at the end of this particular tunnel? Is it likely that you may have a commission? And if not, what do you need to do beyond the strike, of course? What do you need to do in order to ensure that you actually get this commission?
For me, I think we need goodwill. We need goodwill. We need goodwill straight from the president's office. We need goodwill from parliament. We need goodwill from the governors. I think we've had this conversation on and off with various levels of government, including even the COG. Nobody is taking away their power on their workers. Nobody is taking away their payroll. But at the end of the day, we all need to agree that a health service commission is important for us to be able to move forward and to be able to manage health in a better way. So I think the biggest stumbling block, of course, has always been the balance between now the governors and the central government and levels of control. So I think it is a conversation which is beyond the doctors, but the doctors are sort of held at ransom by two levels of government who refuse to agree. But I think it is possible to find a way forward if both levels of government had goodwill of the public, because at the end of the day, if you are to scrutinize the proposals that are made for us to have a health service commission, it is in the interest of everybody, including counties, who will actually benefit from better HR and less cost in terms of hiring.
Okay, so I mean, like we're talking about now, I think what we've often seen, and for both of you as well, what we've often seen is that if we look at the numbers over the last 3-4 years, 3 years to 2 actually, there have been 100 notices of strike from this sector alone. Right? And every time there's been some kind of piecemeal offering that has then been dangled or given in terms of crumbs, and everybody has gone back to work, and the issue has been swept under the carpet until now I think the carpet is reaching the ceiling. Right? Now, we are in that situation again where talks are being had at the very last moment, for the doctors at least. There was the call from both Senate and the National Assembly to come and let us reason together. Right? I see this as a potential danger of going back into the same thing that has been the case for the last, at least for the CBA that we're talking about, 2017 to 2020. I see a danger that lies here. We could all be very emotional. And some of the things that you said, Dr. Gitao, they could pay the bill for Dr. Mugusu. They could pay this bill. They could compensate his family. His family could be compensated. Everything could be sorted and done. But that doesn't solve the problem. We take care of the symptoms. I mean, you're a doctor, so you understand. But we're not dealing with the root cause of the problem. I see a potential danger here, that talks could be had and top-layer action could be taken, but the root of the problem will not be solved. And unfortunately, as doctors, you're lying in the position whereby an action could be taken, or again, the issue is swept under the carpet. And I've got to ask the very difficult question of, what are you really ready to do to make sure that this issue, again, is not swept under the carpet once the tears have dried and once a compensation, for example, is done?
I think we need to just stick to our ground. If I can just take that shortly. It's basically, for this thing to work, all those demands or rights that I like to call them must be put in place. And one of them is the Health Service Commission. And we've made it clear. This time around, it's all or nothing. I hope I hope that the union also, adheres to sticking to those. And from the conversations that I've been having with them is that it's all or nothing. It's either you make sure that doctors are employed permanent and pensionable, you make sure that there is a health service commission, you make sure that the 2,000 unemployed doctors are given permanent and pensionable contracts, you make sure we have comprehensive medical cover, you make sure that we have a life insurance cover. I mean, those are not demands. Those are rights, given that we are basically in the front line. And yes, the root problem is this is bigger than health. This is, yes, we have a teacher service commission, we have a JSC, and the question, and we've had a CBA. We have so many good things in this blueprint of a system that we call the Constitution, but we are not even implementing all those good things we have. So there is no goodwill from the current leadership. Everybody decides to do what they feel like doing or what is good for them. They don't put the people and the Kenyans and the system. Kenya would be very far if we followed the Constitution. So it's bigger than health. It's really about us Kenyans sitting down and asking ourselves, because we can't just put this on. You can't throw this and say, so you doctors, now that you've communicated with the government, do you see the problem is the root cause, the cancer. The cancer is the current leadership and the current government. And once we uproot it and rebuild it and follow the Constitution, and I'm not talking about referendum.
Doctor, you're getting political here.
No, you asked me a question.
Nothing wrong with being political. I'm merely stating the obvious, but nothing wrong with being political. This situation sometimes requires a little political injection, so it's fine.
It is the political problem.
Yes, it is a political problem, really.
It is very political. And when you start involving health and politics, then we have a problem, because health, number one, does not know politics. The COVID-19 virus does not know politics. The COVID-19 virus does not know your financial situation. It knows survival. It is a virus. It will mutate. It will get into its host, and it will thrive.
So,
and in fact, it will kill somebody.
Dr. Mondo, you're saying for you where you sit and when you look at this issue, you're saying the problem here is lack of goodwill from the government, and not just government, but the current administration.
Yes, the current government, the current administration, the current Ministry of Health, because if you cannot sit down with the doctors or any healthcare workers and understand the situation, and the last time I had a conversation with young doctors, what young doctors want, we would hate to believe that these are situations or information that is given to the CS of health or given to the president and he ignores, or given to the governors. There is a way that this information that is being relayed to them is not reaching to them, and the priorities and the people advising them are not advising accordingly. So that's where the problem is. Give us a platform, speak to the people on the ground, as government. Yes, you can talk to your unions, you can talk to your associations and whatever, which is good, because they're also fighting for the same thing. But for yourselves,
Dr. Mwenda, there's something you said here. You mentioned that it's all or nothing. I want to understand this. What do you mean when you say it's all or nothing?
So all those things I stated,
yes,
Health Service Commission, employment of 2,000 doctors, permanent and pensionable contracts for doctors, comprehensive, basically those rights. It's either you deliver them all, because the reason why there's more time is because it's those ones of, we can give you two things, but you people need to be reasonable. You can't get everything you want.
Yeah.
Because that is the narrative that is always, once you sit down on the table, you're told you have demands, but we can't give you everything. And you should be happy with that. But if everything is my constitutional right, is the Kenyan's basic human right, and it's in the Constitution, then I demand it, and you must implement it.
But what if they're not able to implement it? That's what I'm actually asking. What if they're not able to? They may want to, but they're not. What then do you do?
Hey. Okay, according to the strike notice, and as you can see, there's no clinical officer in nursing in hospital right now. And the unfortunate thing is that the last time there was a strike, it took 100 days. You know why? This time it's going to be different because of the COVID-19. It took over 100 days because when the public sector was ailing, when Wanjiku could not get health care, us comfortable people in our middle class with health insurance were going to seek healthcare in private sector. So we didn't feel the effect. You didn't hear Wanjiku's cry when she's not getting a gynae, when she's not getting a surgeon, But when the private sector joined, when KMA came out, the Private Hospital Association came out and said, doctors have been jailed. This is unacceptable.
Yeah.
Within 24 hours, the strike came to an end. So once Kenyans realized that you can't get health care, and I'm talking about all the Kenyans, including the ministers and the VIPs and whoever who seek health care in private sector. Once people realize this is serious, your doctors are dying, there won't be people left. Because if you keep going on, even Mugusu today, how many have we lost? By the time it's 2022, how many doctors are you going to have left if things keep going the way they're going?
Dr. Gitao.
So who's going to treat you?
Yes.
Okay, so now we've heard some of the things which are unverified, but some of the things that we do know and that we've heard over the last 24 hours, that there are some who've called out and said, Vumilia until COVID ends. Everybody is going through a difficult situation at this point, right? People's salaries have been slashed in half. The economy is, in a mess. And then the calls have been towards doctors that, guys, please understand, we're going through a tough time. Just hang on, hold on a little bit more. And once COVID, is over, we'll be able to address these needs.
Essentially, you're being told, just continue suffering for a little while longer.
Yeah, it leaves a very bad taste in my mouth. But let me know,
what is that?
how does it feel when you hear this? And can you Vumilia?
It is so infuriating when you hear such statements, especially when you're being told to Vumilia. You as a doctor are being told to suffer, yet you're the one who's supposed to take care of the Kenyans who is suffering. So who is helping the other at the end of the day? And we are not asking for big things. It is a matter of life and death. We are asking for PPEs that to be readily available at all health facilities. That is not something you tell someone Vumilia. If I die tomorrow, will I Vumilia in the grave? So I think those statements are made in bad taste. Maybe whatever the leaders were thinking at that point, I don't know. But those statements, I think, to the doctors, they are very infuriating. They make it means that, one, you do not understand the situation on the ground. You do not understand that there are people on the front line who they are putting their lives at risk to take care of your constituents, to take care of the people who've elected you. And I think the biggest challenge in this country, I think, is goodwill and accountability. We have zero goodwill. We just say things. Like literally somebody will come and say we'll give comprehensive, in terms of the compensation package and in terms of the group cover. These things were said, letters were done. But in terms of it being somebody being made accountable to ensure that it happens, nobody's accountable. We had a KEMSA issue. Nobody has ever been placed accountable. This how many months down in the pandemic, we still don't know who took responsibility for that issue. And all we are asking is that somebody to take responsibility for the things that are happening in this country and for us to have goodwill. Currently, we have moved on to, I think, another agenda. Yet Kenyans have COVID-19. We have money to actually push certain agendas, certain political agendas, but we don't have money for our country. I think in this country, we have no servants. I think leaders are expected to be servants. Our politicians are expected to serve the people. But I think we developed an aristocratic system where we have kings and queens who we actually serve. At the end of the day, I think they only collect a salary and make things better for themselves at that political place of leadership. But in terms of serving the Kenyans, we lost it.
When you say that, and this is the final question to you, Dr. Gitao, when you say that somebody should take responsibility, who, in your opinion, should take responsibility over what's happening now?
I would say at the very least, the CS of the Ministry of Health should have taken responsibility for all the failings that have happened in the system, and failure to which his appointing authority should take responsibility, and that is the president should take responsibility, and for the work that has been done, and for the work that has not been done, for the doctors that have not been employed, for the doctors that have not been paid, for the doctors who don't have medical insurance, for that Kenyan who died because there was no clinical officer or nurse or doctor in the facility. I think at the very least, the top authority should take responsibility.
Thank you very much. We want to thank you very much, Dr. Elizabeth Gitau, the Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Medical Association, as well as pediatrician Dr. Rain Mwendwa, for speaking to us this morning. Asanteni sana, and we want to thank you for continued service, but we wish you all the best, and we join you in this push for better service delivery.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Time for us to say goodbye to our audience on KTN Home. You've been with us since 7, but this show broadcasts on Spice FM every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. If you're in Nairobi, tune in to 94.4, 102.5 in Kisumu, 87.9 in Mombasa, 96.0 Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret. Nyeri is 90.9, and Malindi, 97.7. See you again tomorrow morning, KTN Home.
Spice FM, Malindi.
That question that we've asked the doctors, Dr. Elizabeth Gitau and Dr. Rain Mwendwa, right? Who should take responsibility for this? This should be our conversation even going forward in the next hour. Is it the CS? Is it the president? Is it the PS in the ministry? Is it the governor? Who is it? And we need to pick one. We can't just say it, this one or the other.
No. All those suspects.
Everybody throw them in the basket.
Yes.
I mean,
ask yourself, we've talked about this COVID situation being a war-like situation. Can you imagine a situation where you send your army to the border without the requisite equipment to fight the enemy? Let's say we had a problem with a neighbor and you send the army with spades, okay, and buckets.
Yep.
And it's a war going on. The other people are armed. They have guns. They have the artillery that's required.
Yep.
The reason why you have an army is so that your neighbors who might have ambitious plans of trying to disturb you are at least cautious in trying to do precisely that. Is that not so?
Yeah.
Now, we have doctors in our midst. We have doctors whom we've trained. We have doctors who are ready to work. And yet we have a situation where we know we have a disease that these doctors can help us manage. Now, that scenario, that juxtaposition, what are we doing?
The reason I'm saying pick one. Remember, like when we took, when Louis Moreno Ocampo decided to open charges against 6 Kenyans, he said these are the ones who are most responsible, most culpable for this. And it was divided between, this is what he alleged that they were, the masterminds of the whole thing.
So you want one?
One name.
President.
Right up there.
This one, you don't need to take it far because he's the appointing authority.
He's the chief executive.
Yes, he's the appointing authority.
If all these things are happening, if, for example, you as the president, you signed off and said, so we are going to hire doctors and then this is what is going to happen and doctors are going to get compensation, doctors are going to get some allowance, we are going to make sure that our doctors, if they fall ill, they go to hospital and they get the best medical care during this time because they are frontline workers. If all this happens, you said this is going to happen. You're the one who announced it to the country and then you hear that it hasn't happened.
We bring it back to you.
Bring it back to you.
Absolutely.
But this is where someone like President Magufuli's methods, much as they may seem a little pedestrian, are useful. He asks, who's supposed to be doing this thing?
Yep.
Who's responsible
for
here?
This? And where is he? Okay, you. Job, out.
You're not doing?
Out. In fact, deal with him accordingly.
There's no question.
We are going to find somebody else because you clearly can't do this job. Let's find somebody who can actually do this job.
Yep.
Ours, it seems to be, you are rewarded for your incompetence.
No, it's like a petting zoo. You know how those zoos where you go and you just pet the animals? Oh, you're very nice, you look very nice today. That's what happens.
I've never been to a zoo.
There's a petting zoo. So what happens here, you don't do your job. It's like you're invited to they come and pet you. Oh, let's discuss how far. Come on.
What I've always found interesting, Eric, maybe you can help me understand this. Someone who's incompetent, someone who under whose watch things have gone completely wrong. They're transferred. How do you transfer such a person?
So now take your incompetence somewhere else.
Yes.
Let's take it to those other lowly human beings who deserve poor service.
How do you transfer such a person? Let them go, for heaven's sake.
They deserve poor service. Those are the Kenyans there in that other part of the world.
Let them be privy to
those ones deserve poor
your
service.
Nonsense.
Yes.
Or you're taken to a ministry which is considered to be a lesser ministry than the other ministry.
It doesn't really matter. So you can sit around and do
absolute
nothing.
Nonsense. So this is the question we want to ask in the next hour. So who should take responsibility over this? And I mean, what should we see happen? It's unfortunate that what we are seeing emerging now is something that the government itself assured the people that this is not going to happen. Yet
the president assured
the president himself. Good morning. It's now 9 o'clock.
up your life. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Traffic.
Today, folks have been on Mombasa Road for 2 hours. From the Kitengela interchange to Cabanas. 2 hours. My goodness. Things could have happened in 2 hours. But people have been parked on Mombasa Road. It's a parking lot. Another one has been on the road 1.5 hours from Kappa to Cabanas. My goodness. Today is one for the books, guys. I'm very sorry. I don't know what to say, but it's been quite crazy. After that, it's clear until you get to Bellevue. Bellevue, you're going to slow down just a little bit because of the water that we see on the roads. The pictures are not looking very good this morning, guys. So it's a jam, and no butter. It's not moving at all. All right, Kirinyaga Road, we've seen some cars that are submerged. Kirinyaga Road, unfortunately, a vehicle has gotten into the water now. So please be very careful, guys. These flash floods, which we were warned about, interestingly enough, a couple of days ago, are happening. Okay, Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Be very careful today, or text us on 40127, and let's try and keep it moving in a safe way this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
As we hear today's proverb from C.T. Muga, just sample some of one or two comments.
Okay, I mean, goodness, what are we looking at today?
I don't know.
This is interesting. Daniel says, unfortunately, it's the same doctors who will elect these same thieves to office, hoping for a better result. Isn't this our shared national folly? Look at the man in the mirror and change your tribal voting pattern. Andrew Sule MD says, giving the state time to resolve the chronic healthcare crisis is like praying to the devil and hoping to go to heaven. Enough is enough. Let the Kenya governors pay pending salaries for the UHC health workers even before we talk of additional demands, such as a health service commission. Johanna says, Kotu, where is the boss? Or health workers are not under your docket? There's the question. A lot of things coming out here, messages from the KMA. What wrong did health workers do to the government? As citizens, we can even apologize on their behalf. Sentiments yesterday by the former PM shows you with how much contempt healthcare workers are treated by the government. Government officials don't even show up for meetings when doctors threaten to strike. That's from James Mwendwa. Alia Harusi Ali says, how can the rest of the public who are non-medics help? This situation is terrible. It really is.
Like we were told yesterday by Peterson, who is the national chairman of the Clinical Officers Union, it's the government that's on strike.
They're the ones who are not working.
Yeah, and I think all of us as a country need to now rise up and tell the government to stop being on strike. It's not just the doctors, the voice of the doctors or nurses or clinical officers that should be heard, or even the other union of technicians and lab technicians and technologists. It's all of us. Those people who are going to hospital today, if you look at the Standard this morning, there are photos of people who went to hospital seeking healthcare. And page 3, a family that had sought treatment at the Coast General Hospital in Mombasa leaves without being assisted. This is a man and a woman and a small little baby. You can imagine. When a man, a woman, and a little baby have gone to hospital, this is not that they were going to visit. Tumakuja kusalimia daktari. Leo hayuko yunasi. Mwambie tarudi kesho. No. When they are seeking services, a patient fails to get treatment at the Rift Valley Provincial General Hospital in Nakuru. This patient is being wheeled out of the hospital on a wheelchair, and she's holding onto her crutches. and she has a plaster on her leg. These and many more go to any health facility, public health facility in the country, and this will be the picture that you see. And what we are seeing is a government. Anyway, before we go further, today's Proverb CT.
A good man must die, but death cannot kill their names.
A good man must die, but death cannot kill their names. Dr. Stephen Mugusu. Good man died, death will not kill his name, and his death should not just be in vain. How is it that he went for 5 months without a salary? How? What is it that could have happened? There are very many things, in government that, somebody was supposed to have signed somewhere, they didn't sign.
I remember.
This money was a reallocation, a reappropriation from UHC. Now it has hired doctors. It was supposed now to get approval somewhere. It was supposed to get signed somewhere. The Treasury was supposed to have been given the names and the details somewhere. But 5 months.
No, Eric, it doesn't make sense. That made sense in the days when everything was manual.
Hey.
Anyone who worked for the government knew. It was known. You will not be paid in the first, second, or third month. After the third.
System.
Yes, exactly. Everything was manual.
How does that even make sense?
It was the norm. Believe me.
But it's not good.
Paper moving from here to here.
It was the norm. You did not get paid for
but you have to work.
Yes, but what would happen? Let me talk about teaching.
Then
because I was a teacher.
They back pay you.
You would report to a school. That headmaster would ensure that they give you some money to live on.
You
Yes.
see, that one
And
is
also,
different
many
now,
schools
CT.
that you went to if they were boarding had a house that was designated for the teacher. Even if
So
you're
you
sharing,
don't have to pay out of pocket.
Yes.
You have a few things that have been sorted.
you
for
are not out in the cold.
But you
Very
see,
different.
It doesn't mean that you should not be getting your salary.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
And I'm
It
telling
doesn't
you-
make it right.
It was now
No,
in the,
it
makes it a little
that
bit
was
more
in the analog system. In
Yes.
2013, we voted in a digital government.
Digital, yeah. So
So
now,
we talk analog to kind of digital.
the reason why that was
Now.
happening was because it was a manual system. Before file goes from here to there, you're working somewhere in the middle of Lamu. They say, okay, here you've signed this form. Then it gets to Nairobi, and then you move. Now,
Correct.
that was then, Abi.
From
That's-
Lamu, it goes to provincial headquarters in Mombasa.
before somebody signs,
Then
they sign,
Mombasa
and then
it
it goes
comes.
by post to somebody else, or maybe even
Yes.
not by post, by messenger. Somebody climbs bus, enters, goes Nairobi, sign, climbs another bus, comes back, bring 3 months. Actually, we can understand. This one, email, press button like this. Boom,
Actually,
the thing
part of
can
the
go.
reason why it took 3 months is, you see, one of the things you did when you were employed by the government, you reported. So the headmaster
has to
communicated to the
notify.
Teacher Service Commission that this person has actually
Is here.
reported. Then they begin the process. You understand? But now, why I'm giving this comparison, I'm saying, if you could understand that then, you cannot explain the situation now in a way that can be understood.
At
You
all.
can't.
And this doctor has not been posted at some remote place where it's very hard to verify whether he's there. Or this doctor has been posted to Machakos County. Here.
Over here. 45 minutes.
You know, there you just
last.
be-
1 hour, you reach.
You give directions by moving your mouth
Yes.
in that direction,
Yeah.
yes.
Here.
Or you point your
Machakos.
nose in that direction.
And then now we are saying that for 5 months,
They couldn't find his file.
there's something that happened that this doctor did not receive any.
They're still
money
trying to put him in
for
the system.
5 months.
Eric, there's something that has been actually bothering me with regard to this. Because we seem to be talking about the same thing over and over again, same problem over and over again. But the thing that is also constant is that we're talking about a certain mindset that people within government, in certain decision-making positions, and they all seem to share that mindset, okay?
Yeah.
It's like, even before COVID, this is not a COVID situation. No. Even before COVID, the problems we're talking about now existed. How do you get people to change, it's not their minds, their hearts and minds, so that they actually serve the people who employ them to provide these services for them? How do you change the hearts? Do you ask people who...
It is first of all making them realize. You see what the CEO of KMA has told us? They actually don't think that they are there to serve us. They think it's the other way around. These people in positions of leadership believe that we serve them.
I think you've got it right. It's not think, they know.
We serve them.
Yes.
That is, when they wake up this morning and they're going to work, you, Wananchi, you serve me, right? So when I hear you making noise, I'm wondering, what the hell are you making noise about? There's a story that's been published by the Star newspaper. I don't really look at it. I saw you have the Star. You can look whether it's actually in the physical copy of the Star newspaper. It's online, ODM leader has criticized health workers for going on strike, saying they took an oath to protect lives and should not watch as Kenyans die of COVID-19. So this is a direct quote that's attributed to him, quoted verbatim. It's not only doctors who are dying. We are also in a hard position economically. This is not the time to hold the government at ransom.
I have actually read it myself, but it's not in the Star. I'm actually looking at the pages again. It's not in the Star. So it's been attributed to...
It's been published in the Star online.
Digital.
If it's been published on the Star Digital, then the Star Digital know where they got that information from. The Star manual that I'm looking at...
Aina.
I have looked. I looked at it earlier. I looked at it much earlier. It's not there. Okay.
It was published actually last night at 21:10 online. That means it must be there. Also, what we are seeing in other areas, other leaders saying, come on, guys. The one you were saying, vumilia, attributed to other leaders as well.
Wahudumu wa afya wavumilie kidogo. BBI iishe.
BBI.
That's according to Sospita Ojamong, the governor for Busia County.
That is attributed to him.
Yes.
That's not a really very clever statement, is it?
No.
Oh, my goodness.
It's at these times when you're not really sure. If the brain-to-mouth filter is not working, you would rather close the mouth.
I would rather confirm that quotation is actually true and that he actually said it.
He's on camera in front of two microphones having said this. So this is a bit difficult to deny. Unfortunately. You want me to say it again?
Please.
Wahudumu wa afya wavumilie kidogo, BBI iishe.
Okay. So essentially what we're
Not even corona.
No.
No, BBI.
Initially we think is that you got
COVID,
the corona iishe.
BBI.
Actually, I think what is actually being said here is not what you're hearing.
Oh.
No. What you're being told is nyinyi wananchi ambao si watukufu kama sisi endelea kutuvumilia tu mpaka BBI ishe and then tutawashughulikia.
It would be very unfortunate. I'd like to hear that clip.
I would also like to hear it. I would like to hear it because...
God.
We have the link to the clip as well, so I mean we can have a look at that one later. So, it's quite unfortunate. If this is the case and this is actually what was said, I keep saying, they're telling you, if that's the case, they're telling you, believe it. Believe it. Don't think that, you know how somebody can say, I hate you, but they're actually saying they like you. No. Somebody's saying they hate you. They hate you. It's not, there are no two ways about it in this case.
If these statements are indeed true, they're indicative of one thing. No, three things actually. Three is a good number. One, whoever advises these individuals, because all these people have advisors, and whoever crafts speeches and statements that they make on such matters should be sacked. I've said this on more than one occasion about the president, because you wonder, what on earth was this person thinking when they asked this person to say this?
But you're assuming that they were thinking.
I know they were thinking. I know they were thinking. What we should question and what we should look at is how it is they think in the way they do. And I think the good CEO of KMA got to the heart of the matter. This is someone talking to their subjects. Yes. Not fellow Kenyans?
Not fellow.
No.
I have a greater right to be in this country than you. But I've asked this many times. At what point did politicians get to that point where they assumed
and we are doing something of great importance?
That they belong to this country and the rest of us are visitors. That actually, when they're there in office, they're there to serve, to enjoy as we serve them.
You know why I bring in the speech writers into this thing and the advisors?
Okay, it's okay. Just continue.
It's not that one.
I will get it.
Because
it was a clip that is actually been posted by NTV online, and it was on last night's news. And the headline was "Doctors Left for Dead." It'll get to that point where Sospita Ojamong comes on, and I will then tell you.
Yes, the reason why I mention this is, you see, there is always a discussion of how something could have been said. It is true everybody's dying, no question about it.
That's true.
It is true that doctors are at the front line. It is true. But then to ask the doctor, their doctors are already taking the heat. This kuvumilia, this putting up with, they are already doing that. So how much more are they required to do this?
Tuvumilia?
Yes. We have a situation where we know there aren't enough doctors on the ground. Yet we have trained doctors sitting, doing nothing.
Looking for employment.
Yes.
This is the thing I don't understand.
Is it difficult to understand that you have 2,000 and you employ a 10th? What do you think you've done? A drop in the ocean. What have you done now? It's this thinking that I was telling you has been puzzling me. Is this something that you ask people who believe in the responses to prayer to actually pray and fast about? Because it's crazy. It is a continuum. You hear it every single day. And you have to ask, what on earth are these people thinking when they're making these decisions? And it isn't once, it isn't twice. Every day you think you've come across something that is really untoward, something. The following day you realize that was child's play. What you're now encountering. And amidst all this, then there are many other words, and you're wondering, if these people could just shut up, okay? And tell us, regarding this is what we've done, and then proceed again with keeping quiet, it would be good.
Yeah.
The doctors want a commission. Would it be a nice thing if the doctors had a commission?
Or at least have a conversation with them and tell them, all right, so from the way we know and we understand government and running of government, this would be the challenge of having a health services commission. Explain to them.
Right. But to keep quiet, you're spitting in the face of any kind of conversation.
If there's a reason why you cannot have a health services commission that is entrenched in the constitution, why not just sit down with them and tell them, so this is what would happen. If you had a health services commission, experts in government will tell you this is what it would mean. So it would not be a good way to go.
There are situations where words don't help. Silence serves a far, far better purpose. But I really want to determine whether these things that I'm hearing are quoted were actually said. I really have to believe.
Yeah, let's take a break.
Yes.
At this point. 17 minutes after 9, this is Kenya's biggest conversation. 0719-012-600. Doctor dies. 1. KMPDU says that this doctor had not received a salary for 5 months. 2. Doctor's now widow is also a healthcare worker. Doctor's widow has also not been receiving any pay from government. Let's just take that break, okay? We'll be back shortly. Just call us 0719-012-600. Also continue posting your comments on social media, Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Thank you.
The political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other.
Remorse is not taught in any school. Manners is something you get from your mother. You don't get it from your political party.
Why are we so unfocused as a country? Why are we spending money and resources, yet we have real challenges in this country?
This coronavirus pandemic should teach us one thing, that universal healthcare is critical. Because at this point, whether you have a medical card that covers you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start. ...24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Next week on the Great Kenyan Bake Off.
Mama, I done made it.
It's Bread Week, and the last 5 bakers are out to prove that they have what it takes to get to the semi-final.
I love it.
It's a race to the finish as they knead, knock, and proof their way through a wild technical challenge. Catch a slice of the action as the bakers deliver on a cheesy signature, and we find out who will rise and who will bite the crust.
I'm pretty happy with that.
Weather around the world, all right. We are looking at Nairobi, 16 degrees. Raining is still in some parts, but the sun is coming out, peeking through those clouds, highs of 27 and lows of 16. Partly cloudy conditions, and also the sun peeking through as well in Nakuru at 20, going to highs of 25 and lows of 13. Light rain in Nyeri at 17, highs of 22 and lows of 13. It's mostly sunny in Eldoret at 16, highs of 22 and lows of 13. Light rain in Kisumu as well at 22, highs of 26 and lows of 19. It's mostly sunny in Kakamega at 22, highs of 27 and lows of 14. Slight rain also in Mombasa at 27, highs of 30 and lows of 25. Mostly sunny conditions in Malindi this morning and highs of 26. Rain showers in Kampala highs of 25 and lows of 19. It's partly sunny at 29, highs of 32 and lows of 26. 18 degrees in Johannesburg. It's mostly cloudy, going to highs of 22 and lows of 14. We're looking at rain in Lagos at 25, highs of 32 and lows of 25. Mostly cloudy in Kinshasa at 23. We'll see highs of 31 and lows of 23. Sunny conditions at 2 degrees in Beijing going into afternoon. We'll see highs of 2 and lows of -5. The low will be 1 degree in Paris today. It's currently at 2 degrees and cloudy, going to highs of 5. Fair skies in London at 3, highs of 5 and lows of 3. And finally, for now, in New York, it's 1 degree. Clear skies, however. It'll only go to highs of 4 and come back to lows of 1.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice.
On the Situation Room 0719-012-600. What is it? What would it take for those in leadership, in political leadership, especially in this country, to just take a step back and hear what is happening to all of us, citizens of this country, that we are not able to get health services when we go to hospital today because because nurses and clinical officers are on strike. Also, because lab technicians, like we were told yesterday by Yegon, they are also not going to work. What will it take for them to address this and look at it as seriously, with the seriousness that it deserves, and not tell us that, well, come on, we have very many other pressing issues. When it's not floods, it's COVID. If it's not COVID, it's going to be some locusts. If it's not locusts, it's going to be famine. We have very many pressing issues in this country. Why should we just highlight this one as if it's the only thing? Ed Getonga, our friend in Nyeri. Good morning.
Morning to you. How are you doing, Eric?
Salama kabisa. Where are you today? Nyeri, Laikipia?
Right now, I'm in the UK. Actually, I've just arrived. Huh?
Okay.
Now, here's the thing. When Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, that's an American shit had hit the fan. When September 11 happened, same thing. They woke up.
Yep.
I think something big has to happen for the government to wake up. Yesterday, Eric, I told you that I think it wasn't wise enough for doctors to call off the strike, right?
Yep.
And then, come evening, now here we are. We have a doctor who passed on. With 5 months down the line, he's not gotten paid. The rot now is coming to the forefront now. But the thing is, if we keep saying that we're going to take action, and then when the day of taking action comes and nothing happens, I think I tend to agree with you on this. We need, even us as the public, we need to join in. But funny enough is, even the public themselves right now, I really felt pained yesterday. I was listening to news, and Right Honorable Raila Odinga was saying that doctors wanafaa kuvumilia because hakuna pesa. And I'm wondering, you guys, you want to spend money on BBI, yes, you are telling me that hakuna pesa. You guys, you're taking much hefty salaries. You can't even, actually, I think those guys, the politicians themselves, they are the ones who actually need to vumilia. They need to lead us by example. They need to say, okay, you know what, guys, we're not going to take salary this whole month or next month. Let's give back. But I think we need a wake-up call. We need to do something as a whole country.
It's true. It's unfortunate. What is it that how do we as citizens make our voices heard as well? Because you see, clinical officers, lab technicians, nurses, doctors have been talking about this over and over and over and over again. And every time there are those that think that, this is just a matter for those workers. But you forget that they're actually talking about the services that they give you. How do we make that conversation then resonate with everybody so that everybody rises up and tells the government, stop being on strike. We need health services. Stop being on strike. Talk to the healthcare workers.
First of all, we need to move out of the comfort zone. For example, whenever a strike happens, for example in the health sector, we're usually told, kujeni wagonjwa wenu, muwapeleke in private hospitals.
That's the message that comes from the public hospital.
Yes. That's the first comfort zone that people should move out, because it's your own right to be in that hospital. And if things are not happening the way they should be yet, you get touched. Yet, there's a budget that comes on board, this money has been spent. Yet, when you go to that specific hospital and you go to maybe their pharmacy, hakuna dawa, you have to ask a question. But people have been so much in their own comfort zone that they're like, even though kuna kuanga, kunanga dawa, even though kuna kuanga. You see?
Yep.
Yes. And CT, I can tell you this, what wakiendelea hivi, the whole thing will collapse.
Kitaumana.
Yes.
Kitaumana,
because now look at this. For example, Erica, let me ask you a question. Even if, I don't know, maybe you can educate me on this. Does the public have the right to ask how funds have been spent
Yes.
on a previous year?
Of course.
Yes, you do. So you're right.
They do, right?
Yep.
But hizo loan zote ambazo serikali imechukua, has anyone ever come up? I think the only guy who comes up na hata siku hizi alinyamaza ni Okia Mtata.
Ada Jamaza? He has many cases in court.
We need to fuel guys like Boniface Mwangi and Okia Mtata. We need to fuel guys like those and be behind them.
Yep.
For example, there's a Facebook group I'm usually in, Buyer Beware. There was a time we had planned on a strike. It so happened some of us were arrested. Too bad I wasn't there. I could have come.
Were you arrested?
No, I wasn't there, but some of us were arrested. Too bad I wasn't there. I wanted to be there. But there is one thing. No, we need people like those. In the sense that we know that our
people
rights
to rise
are there
up.
and we need to rise up. We need to do. I don't think Sudan. Yes. I don't think Sudan had what? They had a miracle when that 22-year-old student did it, right? We don't need to be like Lebanon, what they did when the fertilizer depot blew up. That's when they realized, oh my God, this is wrong.
Actually, in Lebanon, they had been there for a
year
year striking. That was the supposed straw that broke the camel's back.
Or the one that blew things up.
Or it blew the camel actually out of the waters, rather, yes. But the issues had been there, and the unique thing about Lebanon, despite the very many differing factions, on that one issue they were united. Yes.
And that's what we need. Ed, thank you very much. Let's hear what these leaders, the quotes that have been attributed to them. We've actually found the video evidence of that. So let's hear this. This is what they said. Where do you want to start?
Let's start with Busia Governor Sospita Ojamong.
As a ridiculous comment to doctors.
Kama madaktari, nurses, clinical officers ambao wanataka kugoma, hata ukigoma haitakusaidia. Tukae chini tuongee. Mwambie hii wati ya health bwana, mvumilie kidogo mpaka hii BBI ikwishe, kama italeta vitu mzuri alafu twende mbele.
Anita Nkonge. NTV.
So this was yesterday. This is it's what he was saying. Wavumilie kwanza.
Wavumilie kwanza, tumalizane na BBI.
Alafu tutawashughulikia. Let's take a break on that note fast. At 29 minutes after 9. Take a break. Let's go into traffic and see what's happening on the road. We want to take your calls as well after this 0719-012-600. 0719-012-600. I'm sure you've got very many things to say. Yagon is saying when he was employed in 2017, he stayed for a good 6 months in a remote village in Wajir before receiving his salary. The issue is when you're in a probation, this has been norm, this thing happening. You're in probation, you're deployed, you wait for 6 months. And this is 2017, by the way. We're not talking about that era, the previous century when, no.
Now.
Nope. We're talking about 3 years ago. We'll be back shortly.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Hii Krisi tukiwapea mtawezana. Star Times brings you the FKF Premier League. Hii ligi ni yetu, twende nayo. You can also enjoy the Europa League, La Liga and FA Cup. To enjoy, simply get a satellite dish for only 2,699 shillings and aerial decoder for only 1,499 shillings and watch the FKF Premier League live and in HD exclusively on BTV channel 172 and 463. Recharge for 2 months and get upgraded for 2 months or call 0719 077 000.
They are smart, they are funny, and unfailingly entertaining. They are the adults in the room, and they are here to help you be the best adult you can be.
Just to be very honest with each other here, not all of us are going to get tall, dark, and handsome. Not all of us are going to get 0.5s or chotaras. Some of us have to learn the short guys. Some of us have to learn those pot-belly people. Some of us have to learn older men or younger men.
Spice.
Don't ask your partner if he or she enjoyed it. I think the approach should always be, if she's enjoyed the journey, she will let you know. She'll tell you, hey, maze, your bus is big. Mi sijaipanda basi kubwa kama hii. Juu hata hii basi, hiyo mafuta tulieka yote, imetuleta hapa vizuri. Hii basi iko na nguvu. Hii basi iko na nguvu.
Spice.
Now into a relationship, it becomes like you've stopped your life, and then now me, I am.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
Traffic. In and outbound traffic on Mombasa Road today. Plan your journey well, guys, because if you're just getting on, this is going to take some time before we get out of this crazy traffic that's happening here. And then it opens up right around General Motors. It's like it's not part of Mombasa Road. And then you get to Bellevue and it slows down quite some. Uhuru Highway, then into the CBD, all the way through to Westlands, moving very, very slowly today. Coming out of Westlands as well at this point, as you're trying to approach the roundabout, is also very slow. Still at 9:30, and we're still seeing those heightened levels of traffic. Thika Road, also. The service lanes are providing some reprieve, but still moving slowly. Kiambu Road, let's not even talk about it, at least not for now. It might open up in about an hour or so, but for now it looks like the traffic mess that is Tuesday morning. Other parts of the city moving slowly as well. Bagathi Way being compounded by the construction and the rains this morning, so you need to approach with caution, guys. So let's just give that as a blanket statement. Everywhere you go today, approach with caution, at least until the traffic dies down. Spice FMKE, talk to us through the day on Twitter or text on 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
All right, so 27 minutes to 10 o'clock. So we've heard what is attributed to the Busia Governor's Hospital, Jamong, talking about the healthcare workers saying, take a chill pill 3 times a day, preferably before a meal, with lots of water.
You know, when state,
you
know, when you have a situation such as an emotive one, like the one we have, where a young person has died, a young doctor has died, and it's against the backdrop of many other Kenyans dying, it's against the backdrop of many other healthcare workers dying, and healthcare workers have to be mentioned here because they are the frontline workers. There's no two ways about it. It is them who are supposed to be the bulwark. They're the ones who are supposed to protect us, the ordinary citizens, from this disease. So their mention has to be special. It has to be given the respect that it's given. Now, when you have a situation like this and words that are attributed to leaders don't seem to have been well monitored, modulated, and even stated, they come out as being statements that are unfortunate. And whatever it was intended to do, it was intended to mollify. It was intended to quieten down and to reassure. It doesn't achieve that at all. If anything, it achieves the complete opposite.
For sure. But I'm trying to imagine how, if somebody was speaking, you're dealing with the very raw nerve that is being felt at this point. And everything that is coming out of your mouth is contrary to anything that could be causing some kind of that would bring about some kind of comfort. It doesn't. You've basically told people that what you're dealing with politically is more important than what they're dealing with as a matter of life and death.
That, unfortunately, seems to be the loud statement that we
That's
must
what's-
hear, and let's not pretend we're not hearing it.
Yeah, it's clear. It's being said. It's not like it's being couched in other words
So
or
here's
being
the other
hidden.
one.
That's it.
Here's the other one that is attributed to the ODM leader Raila Odinga. It's been shared by the Standard online, and you'll hear a lot of noise because I think it was just recorded from a phone. But this is what he was saying.
All that I want to do is to appeal to the doctors to be more understanding. We are in a crisis at the moment. People are dying. The doctors, not only doctors who are dying, even clinicians who are dying with this problem.
Yep. We're in a crisis at the moment.
We are in a crisis. It is
People are
true.
dying.
It is also true.
It's not only
It's not
doctors
only the
that are
doctors
dying.
who are dying.
It is also true.
So just be patient with us. I'm not laughing because it's funny, because I am for want of anything else.
Or you thought I was going to say something more? Well, I'm wondering, because I've heard the words, but I'm wondering, patient and do what?
Die.
Basically, he went on to say, now this then makes sense what has been quoted in the Star. It's not only doctors who are dying. We are also in a hard position economically. This is not the time to hold the government at ransom.
I think there we have it. It isn't the government being used. The government's then who's been holding us at ransom. The gun isn't on the government's head. The gun is on our head. And we are trying to tell the government, look, remove this gun from our head.
You can't breathe. Remove
Yes.
the knee from
Yes,
our
because
neck.
you've put us in a position where we don't really know what to think or do next. And what we keep hearing from you is words. We've heard them. Now, can we see action that follows these words, please?
The only way then is for the people to attack you. That's the only way. It is a wounded animal that attacks. It is a wounded animal that will come for you.
Indeed.
And this one isn't an attack. You're being told the truth, folks. We have a situation here on our hands. I'm glad you used the word attack, because whenever people are told the truth, they react
feel
as
that
though they're being attacked.
Being
And you're
attacked.
not being attacked.
It's not an attack, really. Let's go to the phone lines. Lydia in Parklands and then Hussein in Nairobi. Lydia, good morning.
Hello, Spice FM. Thank
Hi,
you for
Lydia.
your discussions. Hello, hello, Spice FM, all of you. I wanted to say that Kenya now should go back to the style of Kibaki's government, the small government, so that there's more money to pay the doctors, the nurses, the teachers, technicians. They are the ones who are helping Kenya, not the MPs and the counties or whatever. So BBI should not, it should be cancelled. BBI, Raila and their Kanu bosses, they are only talkers, not doers.
Thank
so
you.
people should not die a doctor should not die without getting a salary.
That's true. Thank you very much, Lydia. Hussein in Nairobi, good morning.
Morning. I think what Sylvia has mentioned, we should stop being talkers but doers. It's very, very unfortunate what is happening right now. I mean, you can see like developed countries like the UK, the slogan actually when COVID started was protect the NHS.
Yep.
And I think I challenge the media, especially you guys. Can we come up with a campaign whereby we will push the government to work towards protecting the guys who are in the front line when it comes to COVID? Because it's very unfortunate. Let me be very honest with you. I mean, we should protect healthcare in this country like any other business.
Yeah.
I mean, talking about BBI and all these things, okay, they are very, very important things in the country. But right now, doctors are dying. I mean, today you go to the hospital, you have COVID, and I mean, there's no one to take care of you. The nurses are running away from you. You know, doctors are striking. I mean, I think we should come up with a campaign, and it should start. Actually, we should not even wait for the government. we should actually come up with a campaign that will protect the healthcare of this country.
I think that's a very good idea, Hussein. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. 0719-012-600. What do you think? What is it that we need to do to make sure that the government listens this time round? Because the government appears not to be listening. When the senior leadership in the country goes ahead to say, come on, we have very many other problems, all right? You're coming with your problems, join the queue. We have very many other problems. We seem to be having other priorities. Yes, we have very many priorities as a country, but right now, we are talking about protecting livelihoods, COVID-19, protecting the healthcare workers who are saving us from COVID-19, and very many other things. How is it that a leader can be so tone deaf?
I can't connect the two. I can't connect the two. That upon the very people that you are trying to convince of a way forward in this country, upon the very people is whom now you say these things. There's no connection between the two. Whereby you're saying, well, it's all right, people are dying anyway, so let's just deal with that one. So what we need to do is focus on this, let's make a better country. Who are you making a better country for? Your people are dying.
It's as if it's okay for those other people to die. It's like...
So let's just move forward and just make the country better.
It doesn't really matter. When you talk about, floods will come. When floods come, people die. So it doesn't really matter to you whether it's a Pokot or a Marakwet who's being washed off by floods somewhere.
It's going to happen anyway, so we'll deal.
It's going to happen anyway. Who are they? It doesn't matter whether it's a Pokomo who's being swept by the swollen river.
Tana.
It doesn't really matter. Really? It doesn't matter with just an ordinary Kenyan who goes to a hospital and they don't get health care and they die.
They're
people
going to die anyway. It's COVID.
That doesn't matter.
One of the things that is comforting with regards to diseases is that you will go to a facility called a hospital and there'll be people called health workers who will be there to look after you, and you have a fairly good chance of recovering and getting better. Now, we have a situation where these people who we rely on are dying.
Are not protected, who would rather stay home than live up to the responsibility of providing
care. They
care.
haven't been given the capacity, the wherewithal, the facilitation to do this job that they are very willing to do and want to do well. So even when they go to work, they are an army who are at the border fighting an enemy, but they have no equipment.
Let's go to the phone lines. Maloa is in Magarini. Good morning, Maloa.
Good morning. This is Maloa from Magarini.
Yes, go ahead, Maloa.
I'm saying the type of leadership actually we are seeing in our leaders that are now is not to what is not to our expectations. We know people are dying. But before one dies, one needs medication and needs food and security.
Yep.
Now, having a nation where people just talk that people are dying, let's you wait. What can you wait? Can you wait to die?
As if it doesn't matter, really. People are dying anyway. What's your problem?
Okay. And again, if I may talk in professionalism, I'm a teacher by profession. Here, strike it will just come January.
Yep.
What we are advocating for is not something which has been written today. It was prior. It was about 3 years and 4 years behind.
Yeah.
It is very sad to see a nation where people are just looting national treasury at the expense that others sit down and watch. I'm sorry for the nation where we are. Thank you.
Thank you, Maloa. David in Siaya, good morning.
Good morning to you.
What do you have to say about this?
I just want to add that this is the new reality. This is the new normal in Kenya. There is nothing much you can do about it. It's high time we begin to accept that this is politics. This is what our politicians are capable of. There is nothing we can do to change that, because if people are talking about uprooting the working government, we can't do that. It's actually almost hopeless.
So
that is what
we accept and move on.
And live with this mess.
What can we do? There's nothing we can do. You just have to focus on your own life and live your own life, because there is no
until your own life is actually affected by these decisions and indecisions that are being made on your behalf, because your life will be affected.
We are being affected daily. We are being affected. That is the new normal for us.
I think unfortunately, if you accept it, then you're going to continue to live in this position. And I think we need to dissuade ourselves from saying that because things are bad, we need to accept that the powers that be want them to be that way. And so we're going to stick in that situation. living, breathing human beings who are sound of mind and have choices, if you're not, unless you're comfortable with it, but if you get to the point where you're not able to swallow this anymore, then you would make decisions as to how they would change. But to accept it as normal is defeatist, in my opinion. And you can't. If you're defeated, that's a totally different thing. But if you want to live a different life within the boundaries of the country that you call your own, then making decisions as per what you can do is something
you should ask David. David, are you feeling defeated?
No, I'm not. Okay, I'm feeling like I should focus my energy onto something that builds my own life rather than concentrate on what the politicians are doing and like.
But what they're doing will affect your life.
Whatever. If we change our regime, we change whatever. There is nothing that is going to change because once somebody gets into that position, there is a 98% chance that person is going to do the exactly same thing that these guys are doing currently. So I'm beginning to lose hope in politics, beginning to lose hope in everything governance. But I'm focusing on my own life.
But this is the crux of the thing, David, because at some point, living this life of yours with the decisions that are being made from a leadership level, at some point, it is going to affect your life.
It's already affecting you.
The person who says they're going to live their own life and walks into hospital, for example, and does not find somebody who is going to be able to take care of them because people are on strike for lack of certain things having been done, it's affected their life.
In fact, that David is thinking, the way he's thinking, his life has been affected.
He's actually admitting it and saying your life is already affected, David.
Yeah.
So
it's survival. It's actually survival.
As you concentrate on that survival, the next thing that you want is, if you want healthcare, then the nearest health facility has collapsed, then how do you focus on your survival? What would you do next? If you want food and food has become very expensive, what do you do next? If you want water and you have no access to potable drinking water,
what are you going to do?
What do you do next?
What are you going to be treating yourself should you fall ill?
I'm lost of words.
Thank you, David. Thank you for your contribution.
Anytime.
Let's hear from John in Nyandarua. Good morning, John.
Hey, good morning. How are you guys?
Good,
Thank you, John.
You know we have to ask.
Yes,
We have to ask about the beds.
Okay, very good.
Where are the beds?
Now,
are they back?
They are not yet back. And you see, they are now having a very big difference between the speaker and the governor.
Uh-huh.
They are fighting each other.
Oh no!
Oh,
because of the COVID issue.
Is this the fight a good thing or is it a bad thing?
Well, it will be held to us because I think I'm seeing some activities from the governor. He's now working. Yeah. Now, going back to the point,
yes,
we as a country, we are in a very, very bad situation. And it is a situation which has been occurring constantly, the doctor strike. And this is something we should get rid of as a country because health services is an essential thing for every citizen in this country. And it is a right which we should fight for. Now, there was a mistake that was done, politicizing or marrying the medical sector with the politics. We should divorce medicine from politics. And this can only be done with the formation of the Doctors' Commission. So what the current doctors who are on strike should do is to ensure that that commission is formed before they get back to work. And the country, the other labor sectors in this country should join hands with the doctors also to go on strike so that the government can be made to understand. Because they don't seem to understand what the doctors are facing.
Yep.
And unless they are made to understand by the people themselves now, they will never understand.
They'll never get it.
They will never get it. We shall continue to have this problem of doctor strike now and then. So every man in the country should join hands with the doctors and go on strike so that this government can understand.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Asante sana. Jimmy in Malindi. Good morning.
Yes, how are you?
Fine,
Good,
thank
thanks.
you.
Fine, thank you, Sana. So what I would like to say is that we have a problem here. And the problem is that we have people who have lost hope. They have lost hope like the other caller who just called.
Yeah.
to a point that instead of them minding their own work, daily work, they can waste their time calling to tell people how much hope they have lost. And this is so bad because these leaders, they're taking advantage of people like this. They know our Kenya, watakubali to our may lose hope. Let me tell you, my brother, if you're listening to this, never lose hope because it is under your jurisdiction to hold accountable of all the leaders, we as citizens of Kenya. And the major factor that we cannot escape here, the government has over, what do we say, is it a coup? There is a coup on the constitution. And the coup on this constitution, it is a coup to the people of Kenya. There is no way a government can take mapenduzi, can take a coup on the people, on its people, with the
overthrowing the constitution.
Jimmy, you're really fired up. This thing matters to you, doesn't it?
This thing matters to me like over my life.
Yes.
Let me tell you why.
Yes.
As an artist, I have designed a flag for the United Federal Republics of Africa. I've designed the currency for the United Federal Republic of Africa. I have designed the anthem, the mace that will be used by the African Parliament. And let me tell you, my brothers, even the Africa International Criminal Court, I have designed that emblem. And there's an explanation for each and every one of them. And it makes me so bitter because why? We really want to see a united Africa and a federal republic. Federal meaning a right to govern ourselves where the leadership is devolved. And that is why Kenya, we need a prime minister. And this prime minister should not come the way this constitution, the way the BBI is bringing a prime minister. The prime minister should be elected by the people, and the prime minister should have all authority over all leaders, even over the president.
Okay.
Because the prime minister will control the parliament, and the parliament will be controlled by the citizen of Kenya. Because all the rights and all the wananchi wa Kenya ndio wenye mamlaka yote.
Jimmy, I see you're a Pan-Africanist. You want this country, this continent to be united and to be one country.
I am a big Pan-Africanist because my forefathers, the President Jomo Kenyatta, he came up saying that about Pan-Africanism. KANU was about Kenya African National Union. You see, look at the black supremacy, the flag of Kenya.
I think one of these days, Jimmy, we'll actually invite you. So we talk about, these ideas that you have on Pan-Africanism and all. Today, you have given us your views on this particular matter of doctors, health workers, and how the government is treating us. Asante sana for your call.
Asante, God bless you.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Too. 7 minutes to 10. Let's take a quick break and then we take more calls. This is Kenya's biggest conversation.
Spice FM, Nakuru. "24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
In the face of COVID-19, life has been adversely affected, with nearly all schools in Kenya lacking basic hand-washing facilities, affecting more than 19 million children. Together with Davis and Shatleaf and True Black, we, the Standard Group, have partnered to collectively unite other corporates and individuals to join the initiative towards setting up basic sanitation facilities around the country. For more information, send an SMS to the short code 40616 or email standwithkenya@standardmedia.co.ke.
All right, so we have just 5 minutes to go,
together.
and I can see we have 3 people on the line. I'm just going to pick you and ask you just to give us your quick comment as we go. Mohammed in Mokijembe, good morning.
Good morning, sir. Waishe wangwana anaweza kuwasalimia kusema salamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam kaka, uko mzima?
Mimi nashukuru Mola niko salama na natarajia natumai pia nyinyi vile vile mko salama.
Tuko salama.
Anyway, nilikuwa nataka kuongea hivi. Mara kadhaa alikuwa nikitumia neno Kenyans behave abnormally. na nyinyi mnataka kuniuliza how. What do you mean by abnormal? Lakini nashangaa nyinyi mnajua zaidi kuliko mimi, manake kila siku mnaongea the way Kenyans are behaving. It's very abnormal. Kiongozi, uraisi, mpaka mwananchi wa kawaida gari kipinduka badala ya kuokoa yule aliyeumia wanaiba yeye. Is that not abnormal?
It is very abnormal.
Alafu viongozi wetu upande mmoja wanasema pesa hakuna, upande mwingine pesa ziko. Hata mimi nashangaa, nimechanganyikiwa, sijui mtanisaidia vipi. Hii abnormality hii tutaitackle vipi, tutai-sort out vipi?
Big question.
Sasa nyinyi nimetangulia kusema kuna wataalamu, lakini najua they are expensive to bring to your studio. This motivational and psychiatrist or psychologist to know how to handle human behavior. Hata hamtaki kuwaleta.
Tutawatafuta. Tutawatafuta na tutawaleta.
Na wako, lakini they are expensive, si rahisi kuja kwa studio.
Tutawapata.
Hata mimi mkinitaka niko na ujuzi kutackle hii behavior binadamu. Mkinialika
Thank you, Mohammed. Let me pick the other callers because I have two others on the line. Yegon, good morning.
Good morning, Eric and the entire team.
Good morning to you.
So, basically, my contribution is that the Kenya government has just neglected the basic needs. You know, the basic needs here is security, education, and health. But the government choose to just focus on security. That's why they are equipped with everything. Utasikia salary imejelewa. I think even it is the only department whereby when you are employed by the government, you don't stay for 6 months without salary. Hizi zingine we stay for 6 months under probation, then you are now paid.
Yeah.
And now that things ahead. Now the government also is just planning to be employing all the elder workers on contract basis so that they cannot be striking. There is now a circular from Ministry of Health that all the elder workers who are under UAC program, they should not strike.
Yeah. That is the order now.
That's the order. I thank you.
Ole, thank you very much, Egon. Elijah, good morning.
Morning, guys. How are you?
Fine, thanks.
Fine.
I'll be brief. I know time is congealed.
Yes.
If you think about what it takes to train a medical worker, if someone is training to be a medical worker, let's say in the US, they come out with ridiculous debt because it is so expensive to train them. Here, it is very cheap to train. The reason being the government subsidizes the training. An idea of what it should actually cost was a parallel program where it was between 500,750,000 a year to train a doctor. But once you train this person, you forget that you invested in them. And so we are basically taking our taxes, training people, and then putting a situation that encourages them to leave.
Yeah.
We are shooting ourselves in the foot.
Investing and throwing it to the wind.
Investing and throwing to the wind. Actually, throwing to the developed countries. That's why they love our professionals. They don't have to deal with the debt burden that they bring. They just take the resource.
You come fully equipped.
Yeah. And then what we do is we take loans to cover our healthcare sector.
Elijah, thank you. Thank you very much. Point home. Asante sana City. We're coming to the top of the hour. Today's proverb.
Good men must die, but death cannot kill their names.
Good men must die, but death cannot kill their names.
No.
All right. Let that sink. Join us again tomorrow morning. We have more conversations. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. CT Muga, Nduwoko, and Eric Latif. Wishing you a lovely day. Keep it right here for Monique to come and take you home on Spice Drive from 3 to 7, and then the adults in the room from 7 to 10. And more in uninterrupted music in between. Have a lovely day, folks. It's now 10 o'clock.